Hello everybody, and welcome to the most beautiful place on earth. And I don't just mean Japan, I don't just mean Tokyo, but I mean Shimokitazawa, the heart of the Japanese music scene, where I'm here to present the 7th annual, Japan Music Awards. Yes, there have been imitators, there have been others, even the music industry itself has tried to get in on the game this year, but we remain the original. Maybe I'll send them a copyright strike or something. Anyway, we always try to give these a different look each year, and so this year I just thought I'd quite literally take the camera out and walk around and talk to you guys about the awards that we want to give out and the various things that we do want to talk about to really sum up 2025, which has been an amazing year. It feels like every year's amazing, but this one, there's been some really great things to talk about. So if you're new to this channel, as I'm glad to say quite a few people seem to be, we've got a lot of new subscribers in the last year as well, I'm going to spend a little bit of time first of all explaining what this is going to be, because the awards we do every year, it becomes a longer and longer video each time we do this, and it's because there's so many things to talk about and so many things that I feel each year can't be left out of the conversation. So what do we do on these awards? Well, first of all, we split them into a few segments. The first segment is awards that we give out to, well, kind of like running jokes on this channel. We have our own little set of memes, things that we find particularly funny. So that's where we're going to start the awards, and then we'll move on to that, from that to some slightly more achievement-based awards, talking about all kinds of things that we think matter and trying to celebrate all the greatest of the music that has been coming out in 2025. But on top of that as well, there's another thing that I do think we have to mention when we get into this, which is that obviously a lot of what I talk about on my channels is both the signed music, which is out there in the charts, you know, making waves and grabbing the attention of people all around the world, but also the unsigned music, the sort of thing that you do get in scenes like this, that you get in the live houses around places like Tokyo. And, you know, traditionally when we do these awards, we've always kind of focused on the big name stuff, the stuff that everyone will recognize. And at the same time, I've been getting more and more people into smaller unsigned bands, and it's kind of become harder and harder to sort of separate the difference. Now, as with every year, we will have a segment this year where we'll be talking about those small unsigned bands, those bands who play the live houses in places like Shimokitazawa. It does seem the majority of the live houses are in Shimokitazawa, but that's not because there's a lack of them elsewhere, just because there's such a prevalence of them here in this tiny little district of Tokyo. But yes, it's a little bit hard sometimes to separate the line between what is a well-known band and what is a smaller band. I mean, funny things obviously came up like this year, the fact that we had Trident signing their first major label debut with King Records, and of course Trident have already been achieving like hundreds of thousands of views on their music videos and been celebrated by, you know, online reactors and people overseas for quite a while. So the fact that they were an unsigned band until this point was something that even caught me by surprise. So how do you separate the famous from the underground? Well, I'm going to be honest, it's something where I'm going to take the approach more like this. The reason why I tend not to focus these awards on the live house bands is because bands who are coming up, who are still on those first steps, who are still trying to, you know, really gain a fan base, I don't like to pit them against each other and say this one's better than that and that one's better than this, which is why we have a segment in these awards which we basically just use to talk about the greatness of all those upcoming bands. So let's put it this way, all of the bands who you'll be seeing featured in the main awards are going to be bands who I think we can safely say are established with big fan bases and doing pretty well for themselves. You know, they're not like struggling to get on the ladder. However, when it comes to the bands who are on the way up, as mentioned before, we'll be taking our time to give a little bit of a segment, well, quite a lengthy segment, to celebrating their achievements as well in this video. And if you are watching this as a premiere, just remember, these videos are quite long. We've got a lot to talk about. So shall we dive in with our very first one? Yes, the best music video trope. And by the way, I'm standing outside of Shimokitazawa Reg Cafe and Reg Box. Great double venue. Just thought I'd point that out. But anyway, yes, the best music video trope. See, this is something that we've decided to give one of our comical awards to every year because of the fact that there are some tropes that you all know. The first year we did this, we focused on the R17 location that so many bands have filmed music videos on. And then after that, we did Shibuya Crossing, because every band has to have a music video on Shibuya Crossing. But this year, we've decided to focus on probably the biggest of all tropes, rooftop music videos. Yes, that's right. It feels like every single band, every single artist has to have a music video filmed on the rooftop. I mean, why wouldn't you go for a rooftop? It's such a perfect location. It's somewhere which is basically a clear stage with a perfect background. The cityscape, the beauty of Tokyo. I even started this video on, well, it was more of a balcony than a rooftop, but I was up high. So yeah, I get the appeal, and it's actually a really cool idea, as I mentioned, for doing a music video, whether it be on the cheap or not. It just gives you a great look. But who has been utilizing those rooftop spaces the best? Now, we put out a little request on our Discord, as always, to get people to give us suggestions of what they thought the best rooftop usages were this year. I've gone through them, and I've come up with my decisions. So let's see what you think of my choices, starting with the nominees.
The first nominee is Nekraitalki with Hard to Say Lali Lulelo, and this is a music video and song that just encapsulates the really fun, upbeat, crazy and inventive personality that we always get from Nekraitalki. And yes, they do spend a little bit of time on the roof. It's even featured in the thumbnail for this video. Unfortunately, the majority of the video is not spent on the roof, and as fun as it is, and as much as I do want you to go check out both Nekraitalki and this song and this video, I'm afraid this is not quite a rooftop video. They spend most of their time inside the school, so sorry Nekraitalki, you don't get this one. But moving on to our next nominee, Haku with Minami Shinmachi. It's a similar story. It's a really cool song from this upcoming band who have just been bursting onto the scene and gaining so much more attention, so many more eyes pointing at Haku in 2025, which is great to see. But in this video, yeah, they actually ate on the rooftop. They spent some time up there. They did have a little bit of a run around, but most of the music was being played in the classroom underneath, and this seems to be a trope. A lot of music videos with rooftops, but the music is being played inside the school. Come on, guys, let's get more onto the roof. Oh, I tell you someone who is getting onto the roof. That's Suisei in the Caramel Pain music video. And this is an interesting take. 3D animated Suisei jumping up to a 3D animated rooftop. It is such an interesting take on the rooftop video idea, and I love that it takes us right up to the crescendo of this amazing music video that we will be coming back and talking about later in this awards as well. But yeah, it's just at the end, there's just not enough of the video spent on the rooftop for me to consider this a rooftop video. So sorry, Suisei. On we go. Let's go to something a bit more traditional, shall we? Me Minor. This is a band who have been bringing a really interesting and infectious variety of kind of pop rock with just creative musicianship, and their video for One Room Midnight really was the traditional rooftop video. They performed the entire song on the rooftop. A great song it is as well. And I love that you can see everything out in the background behind them. It's got a good scene. It is really the quintessential traditional rooftop video, and I do like it, but there were some slightly better ones. After School brought us Asterism, and you know, it's virtually the same video. It's so similar in so many ways, but they brought furniture up there. I don't know why, but you have to get extra points for not just loving the rooftop, not just bringing the band up there and playing music up there, but also bringing the furniture up, you know, actually inhabiting the rooftop. That is definitely a good way to get bonus points. But I have to give the win to Folia with Voyage, because yeah, it's the same thing again. They went up to the rooftop, they did the traditional rooftop, you got the background behind them, you can see everything you need to know it's a fantastic rooftop video, but they've got balloons and they're filming it with drones, and it's just, there's, you know, this is like such a joyous video. It's a great song as well. I think Folia have been really on top of their game with just these incredibly sort of fun songs that they've been releasing ever since signing up with Amuse, and now with King Records as they recently have as well. It's just a band who are definitely on the up, who've got a bunch of really great songs behind them, and Voyage is one of them. Not only is it a great song, but it has a great rooftop video, in my opinion, for the music video trope of having a rooftop video, which every band needs to have, surely. We have to give the award to Folia for Voyage.
Yes, I think we can all safely agree that was the right choice. Or at least, if that was contentious, wait for some of the stuff that's coming up later. But anyway, I'm going to present this next award from out front of Shima Kitazawa Mosaic, which is one of my favourite venues. Don't look at the rubbish. I'm actually filming this on New Year's Day, so it's closed and there's rubbish, but don't look at it. Anyway, look. I've said before, I think in a Q&A recently, this is probably, if I had to pick, this is probably my favourite venue, just because it's got this amazing like live stage downstairs, great sound, great lighting, you know, it's got a nice open space even though it's only like a 250 capacity venue, and it's got a great bar, which is a fantastic place to chill out, and they do every time, there we go. Every time they do a show there, you get special drinks made, which are like special cocktails designed to celebrate each of the artists playing and all these kind of things. Absolutely love it. Great place to chill out, which is my segue to bring us into the Best Hiatus Award. Yes, I don't even remember where this award came from, but we started giving an award for the Best Hiatus, which was basically our way of celebrating bands who have decided, as so many do, to take some time out from music, but have done it either for the best reason or come back in the best way, or just utilise the idea of doing nothing in the most impressive manner. So here it is, our nominees and award winner for Best Hiatus. And do you know what? Strangely enough, this was actually one of the hardest contested ones.
The first nominee was going to be Perfume, but I did a little bit of research through because, you know, I always have to research the Best Hiatus Award to see who's officially on hiatus, and Perfume really did seem to be suggesting that they were going on hiatus with that fantastic ending to the music video for Loop, which just really looked like it was bringing them back to the beginning of their career and sort of showing everything going full circle, and that was what a lot of people in the comments seemed to say as well. But after doing a bit of research, no, they've taken a pause, but not officially a hiatus, and there is more activity coming up. So no, Perfume, that would have been epic given how massive they are. If they had been the band going on hiatus, they would have probably won this, but no, officially not on hiatus. So next up is The Uncrowned. This is a much smaller group, but a group who I definitely want to talk about with equal importance, because this band has been through quite an interesting history, tragically losing their original singer and coming back in 2025 with a new singer. It would have been a long road to get there, and I really wanted to give them the award for Best Hiatus because of what an amazing recovery they've made to sort of put themselves back on their feet and record this amazing new album. But no, officially they were not apparently on hiatus, so they can't win this, but I would encourage you to go check out The Uncrowned. Definitely a group who deserve your attention. And next up is another group who I really love. It's a band called I Love Me, who have been through an interesting history themselves, releasing some of the most uplifting and genuinely wonderful songs from a kind of like EDM pop but very guitar focused sound. They really have brought so much joy and life and interest into the musical scene for so many years, and they went on hiatus in 2025 as well, but I must say, it's a hiatus that just kind of made me sad. We don't know when we're going to be getting them back. I hope we're getting them back soon. There is a little bit of an announcement going around that they will be doing more things in the near future, but I was just kind of sad about that one. I miss I Love Me, and so, you know, I can't quite give it the award for being my favourite hiatus of the year. The next one up I have to mention is Gatric Spin. Now, this was not officially a hiatus. They've been on more of what they call a slow down. They have played a few shows, you know, members have got together, individual members have done things. They are technically not really active in their normal way, so I can't quite say they win the Best Hiatus. I would say though that their slowing down did allow us to have a Dolls Box reunion, where most of the members of Gatric Spin get together with Fuki, usually known for her work with Unlucky Morpheus, and that in itself would be a pretty good winning quality for a hiatus if it gave us something like the reunion of Dolls Box, even if only temporarily. But no, Gatric Spin are not officially on hiatus, so I can't quite give them that one. Now, the one that was very, very much up at the top of my interest that I wanted to really draw attention to was the hiatus of STMLT. Now, they had a great comeback off the back of their hiatus. In 2025, they came back with a couple of new songs, a new energy, and really felt that for a group who kind of become famous primarily through meme kind of internet videos, actually they came back with a feeling that they really were going to take this music seriously, and they've had two songs that have really lent into that direction. However, I can't quite give them the Best Hiatus because their comeback, as great as it is, has been with a support singer. It's like the singer doesn't appear to actually officially be a member of the group, and so it's like they've come back from their hiatus, but they haven't quite secured their lineup yet. They're still looking for an official lead singer. Yeah, they've got 2 singing roles in the band, but they're still looking for a singer, so I can't quite call this the best hiatus because the comeback seems a little bit muddled. But still, I think they're coming back and going in a great direction, so I really hope to see great things from STMLT. And yeah, credit to them, I am so glad they are back from hiatus. So they would have won this award, but I have to give the award to, well, a Japanese legend. I said at the beginning of this round that, Perfume, they would have won this just because of such a big group going on hiatus, what that would have meant. Well, one very big, important legend of Japanese music is still on hiatus, and that is Wagaki Band. Yes, Wagaki Band are the winners, and the reason why their hiatus is the best hiatus is because, well, it's given us Samurai Diva, the album from Yuko Suzuhana, which is absolutely great, and just so happens to include a lot of the members of Wagaki Band. Now, yes, I know there's all these former lineups of the Wagaki Band members and bands that predate Wagaki Band with Wagaki Band people in them, and there's all this kind of stuff, and I'm not going to get into that right now, but it is so cool that even though they are technically on hiatus, we're basically still getting a lot of Wagaki Band. That's how to do our hiatus. Basically, break up your normal sort of process, break up your normal things, but still bring us the music that we love in just a very different form. So I have to say Wagaki Band, definitely winners of Best Hiatus of 2025, because it's been a busy hiatus. And now on to the next one from... Yeah, you know exactly where I am. So anyway, I'm just going to quickly run out of here. I just had to film this while I was in Shimokitazawa because I know how much a lot of people care about The Shelter, which you might know by its other name. I'm going to point out, by the way, as I mentioned, this is January the 1st, so I only went down there and recorded that because I know they're closed. But actually, the funny thing is that Shimokitazawa Shelter, they do put out signs and things asking people not to clog the entrance, taking photographs and stuff. But it's kind of an interesting dichotomy, but at the same time that they are really marketing and merchandising that whole brand of The Shelter. They've obviously become very aware of how big a thing that has become culturally. So, I feel like they're kind of tempting their own problem there, but hey, it's a live house, they're making money, they're making an interesting little reputation for themselves in the scene and internationally, sort of broadening people's views overseas of live houses, so much love to them. But yes, I will sneak in there and get my little bit of video while I'm on the way through. But anyway, talking of these things, talking of contentious things, in fact, that last award was a bit of a hard-fought one, but this next one is all about fighting. That was a good segue, I did that one off the cuff. This next award is one that we've done quite a long time now. We've done this several years running, and this one always leads to a bit of fun, but I think we've got quite a strong potential winner this year for the Best Fight award. Yes, this is basically any kind of combat or fighting or any real sort of contentious one-on-one or multiple-on-multiple kind of fighting in a music video, in a video that we think best represents that sort of fight, that energy, that power, that aggression that occasionally music needs, that bit of kicking of ass that you do occasionally need to see in music to show its urgency, to show how much, music is really fueled by a little bit of oomph. That's the word I'm going to use. I don't want to keep on reusing the word fight too many times because that's already in the name of the thing. So anyway, that's what we're going to be presenting now. And I think we've got quite a convincing award winner this year. So see what you think. Yes, looking at the nominees, let's start with Sakan Action for their music video to the song Kaiju, and thank you to Svens for suggesting this one to me because, it's a great song and video that's blown up, although for a video called Kaiju, it's not a kaiju that he fights in this video. No, the man fights a wall. He fights a wall, and it's for most of the music video, and it's pretty damn intense. I gotta be honest, if you're gonna fight something, fighting a large solid object is pretty impressive. So I have to say, this was an impressive entry, but no, not quite the winner this year. And moving on, we also have Haku, who they had their video for Machu Neko, which basically means crazy cat, which had a wonderful scene where a fake gunfight on a film set leads to an actual assault of an extra who basically falls from the top of a building. This is a pretty intense fight scene in many ways, but as it is an accidental assault and a fake gunfight doesn't quite win it, but we do have to give them a lot of props for a very inventive scene and video. But that moves us on to something else which is very inventive, which is 171, who actually is supposed to pronounce it Inaichi, and their video, well, I mean, Footsteps. This was a really amazing breakout video that got them into a lot of people's attention and was a really interesting song and video, but it has to be said, one of the most notable scenes was that slow motion fight scene with the swords and the buckets of water. Really creative. They've been making something of a reputation of having inventive songs but also really inventive videos to go with them. This was a great example, but not quite enough to push it, because next up we had Perfume. We were talking about them earlier. The Epic group continued what seems to be a two-part music video. The second part of their running around with space lasers having a gunfight series with Jeune Loop, which had that wonderful ending to, well, what had been set up as a strange to be continued at the end of the last music video. And well, look, anyway, we found out finally who they were fighting with their laser guns. It ended with a brilliant showdown, a fantastic conclusion, and a really poignant moment for the Epic beloved group. But even that, with a fight going throughout the entire video, leading up to a massive conclusion, even that could not win Fight of the Year, because something happened this year that definitely had to come first. Whatever else came out, this had to come first. Yes, the best fight of the year is Ayumi Hamasaki versus oppression. Yes, versus censorship and oppression. Ayumi Hamasaki, look, we have to talk about that show that she did in China. And I'm going to respect the classy thing she did, which was say afterwards that she's not going to talk about politics because she doesn't want to talk about something she knows nothing about. And, you know, as many opinions as I and other people might have, I'm going to keep politics out of this. But just saying this, she went to perform a show, her entire crew went there, and then the government of said country decided to basically block off the stadium so no one could enter, and claimed it was force majeure. It's not force majeure if you send out your people to stop people entering the stadium, to stop the people who paid for their tickets coming in. That's not force majeure. That's you forcing a concert to end. And yes, politics should never be allowed to stop music going ahead. And Ayumi Hamasaki, she went up on stage, her crew organised it, they played the entire show from intro through to encore to an empty stadium, and filmed it, and are still going to release the DVD Blu-ray set, so they're going to make money out of this after all. That is a massive win, making a profit off the back of this incident, whilst also remaining classy and saying that you're not going to put out any statements, showing love to the fans in the country despite what the government did to shut you down. Ayumi Hamasaki fighting against the most ridiculous, stupid form of political oppression. I love this. Most people love this. And Ayumi Hamasaki, you have put yourself right at the top as a queen of classy pop music. Definitely the ultimate fight winner of the year, Ayumi Hamasaki.
And yes, I think that is something that we can all very much definitely agree was well deserved. But talking of well deserved, we're going to move on to another one of the awards, an award that we do every year, that we have always done every year, and that sometimes we play for a bit of a joke, which is the Best Presenter of the Year award. And well, the last couple of years we've given it to someone who's very special, because realistically this is a person who's actually done a huge amount of work for this channel, who's been a huge friend to this channel, and basically has managed to make most of the videos work by being the interpreter, by being good-humoured, by being a personality who's just given so much to this channel. And so, you know, we've given her the award twice before, and I think it's probably time that we give her the award a third time, but with a little bit of a...
About?
Excuse me, I'm busy. Oh, hi. Should we go talk about this somewhere?
Let's do it.
Hello.
Hey.
So yes, honestly, thank you so much for all the stuff you've been doing for the channel. You've been doing a hell of a lot. And yeah, I like how you just nodded there quietly, like, yes,
Yeah.
yes, I've done a huge amount of work. So let's try that one more time.
Yeah, right.
Even that distracting me.
He's so cute.
He's really cute. Just a person riding by with a bicycle and a little kid on the background. All right, one more time. Hello there.
Nice little spot we got
Yeah,
here.
that was a good transition, and we now look like we're kind of like filming the cover for a rap music video. Anyway, oh god, the stereotypes. Yeah, honestly though, as I say, a massive thank you. You've done a huge amount for the channel, obviously with, well, presenting things, translating things, being there to help set up the cameras and all of that when I always forget and leave one of them switched off when we're doing sessions. Basically just helping with everything and making it more possible, more fun and better, just everything better. So
Yeah, it's been a blast.
I am glad you've been enjoying it as well. I mean, obviously with me having to leave the country in January, it's going to be probably a little while before we do the next one of our sessions, but we'll still be hopefully remotely doing the John Reeves monthly thing. That's been kind of an interesting development, though, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
sort of like previewing what gigs are coming up each month. I've noticed that the two of us have been sitting there, like, you know, before we do those videos, we sit going through, right, what's coming up. Oh, that's next month. Oh, this is too early in the month. I can't talk about this. But yeah, I mean, any particular things you've enjoyed or any particular thoughts about the last year or so?
I mean, I love being in the studio. That's always so much fun.
Yeah, I think it is really cool when we're in the studio with bands, and also seeing how different each one of them is.
Yeah, getting to know them. It's been pretty good.
And you've been very active, obviously, you've been doing your idol work as well.
Yes.
So you've been busy with your group.
Mm-hmm.
You've just been busy all the time.
I mean, when I started working with you, I wasn't even in a group, I think.
Yeah, well, actually, no, I think, well, when we first started talking, you were just leaving your previous group.
Yes.
And then we worked on doing your solo album, which I still recommend. I think that album's amazing. And then from that, you got into this group.
Yes.
It's almost like you just like being busy.
I do.
So in a way, I'm doing a service here. I'm helping you, really. That's what's going on here. So anyway, as a result, now the last 2 years, we gave you beautiful awards that were generated with the wonder of AI imagery. But see, the difference is this year is because you've become so good at winning this award that we've had to kind of elevate this into something of a Lifetime Achievement Award.
Ooh. All right.
This time, for the first time ever, it actually looks like a real award. It looks like a real thing. Look at that. It's really good. So there you go. This is your award for winning 3 times in a row.
Oh, thank you.
And yeah.
Oh, I like how you spelled it spelled humor both ways.
I spelled humor and I put brackets around the U because I could take out the U, but I'm just too stubborn to do it. So I know you're American, but okay. Yeah, in all honesty, as mentioned, I think when we were talking in the community every year about this, it's like every time we talk about who's going to be the best presenter, everyone's just like, well, I mean, it's obviously Choka, so who comes second is more the conversation we're actually. So yes, we have now elevated you to lifetime award status. This is now just your award. You get to keep this award. You are the best presenter forever.
Thank you.
But in all seriousness, partly because, you know, crouching like this does take a toll on your ankles. I want to ask you.
I'm Asian, so my ankles are stronger than yours. I've been Asian squatting my entire life. You can cut that out if you like.
We're in a park, and it's actually got one of over there. It's got like one of those little squat toilets and everything. So that's just the first place my mind.
Yeah.
If you ever come to a Japanese park and you've got the little toilets there, just a hole in the floor. Why are we talking about this? I don't know. Sorry, yeah, I'll say you started it. But in all seriousness though, with next year coming up, as I've said before, we don't know 100% what's going to happen with everything. We're going to try and keep on doing the John Reeves videos monthly, even if that's remote. It's going to make it easier to do, in all fairness, because we'll just send in our parts. So I don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but we'll have to do that. And then the minute I get back to Japan, obviously we'll have more sessions coming up, more bands we'll be working with. We filmed a lot the last few months.
Yes.
So we're going to be working on editing those as well.
And then while those are being made, I will also be doing the subtitles for them. So
Yes.
we'll be busy behind the scenes.
Funny thing is that you can these days, you get like the AI subtitles, things are all there, but the truth is that I just do not trust it with something that sensitive. And I love the fact that when you look through the subtitles, even if I do them myself, you look through them and you're like, that needs to change, that needs to change, that needs to change. So it's just so much better. And again, this thing, when we're doing the interviews, I love the fact that like, look, the last one we did was Jam to Highball, and they talked for like 10 minutes per question, and you managed to get like a really concise translation of each thing they said. So yeah, it's the human touch is always the best thing, which is why you've actually got a human made award this year. We we made a real one.
Are you sure this logo isn't AI generated?
Harry from our community made that logo, so Harry, there you go, that's for you. You're so good you could be at, wait, no, that's not a compliment. In all fairness though, I am looking forward to next year. Looking forward to getting back to things. Wishing you the best. Any particular activities you've got coming up next year that you want to sort of plug while you're here?
I mean, any of my shows.
Any of your shows, yeah. Actually, that is a good thing. If someone comes to Japan, I can't say that enough. I keep on saying this, and I wonder if people think I'm just plugging it because it's you. But if anyone comes to Japan, they need to see your group.
I mean, first of all, because my group is awesome.
Yeah.
But, like, technically, I'll be there, so it's just kind of like, if you're new to the idol scene or new to the live house scene, like, I mean, I'll be there to translate for you, to interpret for you, to show you the ropes, I guess. So
Yeah.
just come on over.
And also, like, just the pure theatre of your group. Like,
Yes.
every single show. Are you still doing like cardboard? You always make cardboard props for the shows. Like each show has a theme. Are you still making cardboard props for shows?
Not anymore, but we do also have like other things going on. So
There's
on
always
different
something.
costume changes and stuff.
There's always something wild going on.
Yes.
So yeah, genuinely, always links will be below.
Yes.
That's for everything. Anyway, thank you so much. You are now and forever the best presenter. Which I'm not sure how I feel about that, if I'm honest with you. All right. Shall we?
He just hopped in and was like, never mind.
Thank you very much, best presenter.
Yay! Thank you guys.
And see ya. Best presenter forever, Choka Kandachi.
Spelled my name right too, which didn't happen in a lot of my graduations in school.
See, I am better than a school. Don't know what comparison that actually is worthy, but yeah, you get it. Anyway, on to the next one. So we're back in Shimokitazawa for our next award, and I swear I'm not just doing Bocce the Rock tourism. Anyway, so this award is one that we give out each year, and actually I've got to be honest, I feel kind of it's a nice one. We kind of call it the Pride of Japan Award jokingly, but realistically this is our only lifetime award, and what we're really looking at when we give this award is a band who we want to say, we're going to give you this lifetime accolade for just spreading the good image of Japanese music, for putting out Japanese music to the world, for spreading this scene which is so uniquely of one place and transferring it over to other places in the world, allowing other cultures to see it, allowing other cultures to enjoy it. And you know, the funny thing is that this is something where Japan and its musical scene has been evolving so much over the years, and of course over that time it's had its various connections, its various forays into other parts of the world. And we've spoken in previous years about, you know, bands like Scandal, who helped to codify the very idea of what a girls rock band looks like in a successful way with longevity. We've spoken about bands like obviously Baby Metal, who caused this explosion in the awareness of Japanese music, and moreover an explosion in the understanding of... So I'm just going to stop talking and just let the Koto music play. Wouldn't you love it if your neighbourhood was like this? But what if this is a famous recording and I get a copyright strike? Better keep walking. We've talked about bands like Baby Metal, who obviously have, like I say, helped with the explosion and bringing that idea of, you know, the fact that Japan as a country combines genres and is not afraid to go over genre boundaries and mix things together. You know, we've talked about all of those things, but today I wanted to talk about something that kind of came a little bit before there, because a lot of what I love about Japanese music, and a lot of the fact that the most recent Japanese music to me is the most exciting music. And I've said so many times before that we are living in the golden age of music right now. The golden age of music here in Japan is the golden age of contemporary music in the world. And sometimes it's hard to see when you're living through that time, but I think that time is right now in Japan. But, you know, when you're so excited about those things and when you're talking about those things, it can sometimes be easy to miss the fact that there was a lot of steps to get to that place. And, you know, a lot of those great things that we have now are built on foundations, simpler times, one might say. And that is really what I wanted to celebrate this year, with this year's entry into the Hall of Fame of artists who I think we can safely say need to go down in history as being lifetime achievers, lifetime ambassadors for the music scene of Japan. So, this year's Pride of Japan Award, Lifetime Achievement Award for bringing Japanese music to the rest of the world goes to
Shonen Knife, and boy oh boy is this one a little bit overdue, because if you want to talk about a band or an artist who has been showcasing the best of Japanese music and the Japanese musical ethos to the rest of the world for a long enough period to get a lifetime award for it, well, who is going to come before Shonen Knife? And in fact, who did come before Shonen Knife? The band, who themselves came out in 1981, were a bit of an anomaly at the time, given that when they formed as a three-piece girls rock band, there wasn't really much else in the way of girls rock bands at all. There was not the girls rock band scene that we know now. There wasn't any of that, really. They didn't really have any other peers, and so they were trailblazing right from the beginning. But not only were they playing a kind of three-piece punk rock, but they were infusing it with a fun kind of pop attitude towards melodies and catchy choruses, and a sort of feminine, fun attitude towards lyrics as well that would talk about everyday things, candy and sweets often being a favourite of theirs, and happy things that would give the audience a really good time. And this was at a time when obviously a lot of music, a lot of punk music at the time, was very kind of raw, energetic, and a little bit more angry and rebellious. Shonen Knife were bringing a sense of joy. They were mixing punk and grungy sounds with a poppy aesthetic, and this is the kind of genre mashing that obviously is quintessential to what we mostly love about Japanese music now, a freedom from the restraints that often come with many musical genres. Now, it's fair to say that not only did they start off trailblazing, but they've continued a career that has been spotted by bringing the best to the rest of the world, traveling overseas and touring a lot during the 90s. In fact, you probably know that they got a little bit of fame for the fact that they opened for Nirvana. In fact, Nirvana specifically requested them, meaning that Nirvana had heard of Shonen Knife before Shonen Knife had heard of Nirvana. And interestingly, they became good friends. Nirvana covered a couple of Shonen Knife songs, and Kurt Cobain is on record as saying that he is a big fan of Shonen Knife, or was a big fan of Shonen Knife, I should say, is something which has been a rather good seal of approval to carry with the band ever since. But no, they have not rested on their laurels. Shonen Knife have released albums every couple of years or so, pretty much from their formation right through until now. And in 2023 was their last album, which got a lot of good acclaim, but they are continuing to tour and release music, keeping that same ethos that they've always had, but also keeping two of their original three members. Yes, Naoko has been the singer throughout, and Atsuko, she's been with the band throughout, although she did switch from being the drummer originally to being the bassist. But I must say, I am also a big fan of Risa, who has been their drummer ever since about 2015. She's now been with the band for more than 10 years, which you'd think would be a very long time, but this is a band who's been going since 1981, so, you know, I mean, she's still relatively new by their standards, but I really hope that she stays with them, as she's really brought a lot of that kind of joy that we expect from Shonen Knife, and she's just been very good keeping the energy of the band alive. But yes, Shonen Knife really is a legend in the scene. It might not be a band who we always talk about, who have regular big hits or anything like that. They might not be the sort of band who are always on the tip of your tongue with innovation, but they are a band who were innovative when they came out. They blazed trails for the Japanese female rock scene. They broke down the boundaries of bringing Japanese music across to other parts of the world, and they did all of this in a way that is still very recognizable. We talk about how bands like Scandal have been around for nearly 2 decades now and how great that is, and how they had kind of helped to codify what the modern Japanese girls rock band looks like. You think about so many bands who kind of look in the way that Scandal set up the idea for. You know, we've got bands like even Silent Siren and all of these other female rock bands who you think, oh, they're kind of like, you know, follow-ons from what Scandal helped to start back in that day. But there are bands even before them, and Chatmonchi was a great example of that. But even them, you have to go back further and further and further, and when you do go back all the way, you find Shonen Knife. Trailblazers at the beginning, still going strong, still keeping the ethos, still bringing Japanese music overseas even now, and definitely a worthy award winner of the Lifetime Award for Pride of Japan for their work bringing Japanese music to the rest of the world. Ladies and gentlemen, Shonen Knife.
Ah, see, that award was fun and wholesome and lovely, and it perfectly segues us into a surprise. Okay, so anyway, yes, the surprise of the year. That is what we are going to be talking about in this next one. Now, this is an interestingly subjective one because we're talking about a good surprise here, something that is really just a thing that I wasn't really thinking about at the beginning of 2025 that kind of caught me in a good way and just made me think I am excited about this for the future. Sometimes we give this to bands who I've heard of and maybe was like thinking, oh, maybe not my thing, but then suddenly surprised me by turning out to be a band who I really got into. Sometimes it can be a band who I didn't know and came from nowhere and just suddenly grabbed my attention. But yes, obviously I have to give a little bit of subjectivity on this one and just really tell you about what's been the best surprise for me as someone who's been reviewing all this music, so much of it being recommended by you guys. Now, as we are diving more and more into these achievement-based awards, we're going to be getting more and more into talking about things that have been, well, just genuinely sort of really exciting songs. So buckle up, because we're going to get into some interesting ones. But here's my pick for the best surprise, and I'll be really interested, more probably than most awards, to know what your opinion is on this one, because it's really interesting to know what you guys are hearing, what you guys are seeing, what music's getting through to you. Nearly got run over by that bike. That was a bit of a surprise. Be really nice to know what things have been surprising you in 2025, and as mentioned before, really excited to see what we get to hear by the end of 2026. But anyway, yes, here are my picks and my choice for the best surprise of 2025. Oh my god, that rhymes.
And looking at the nominees, I've got to be honest, this is one of the hardest years I've ever had for finding a best surprise. Because rather than just being one standout, there's been a bunch of bands who I've been really impressed with, just because at the beginning of the year I either knew their name but didn't really know much about them, or had never heard of them, and by the end of the year I was thinking, yeah, this could really go somewhere. And one of those is Au. I still don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but this is a band who I'd heard of before. But you know what? It's just actually been quite impressive seeing how, as each of their songs comes out, I've been getting more and more of appreciation for them. The song Geek was definitely a turning point for me, where I really felt, along with that really cool video, everything was just kind of clicking together. I still feel like they've got a lot of room to grow, despite the fact they've gained a lot of success and appreciation already. But yeah, this was a good surprise. Maybe not the top one though. Another band that I put in a similar category would be Shakira, who have been coming up at quite a rate also, and did deliver some really interesting songs. I will say the last two singles especially, I love how different they were. They're showing a real flair for variation. Again, a band that's got a bit of room to grow before I think they're going to be like one of my favourites, but definitely I've enjoyed watching them growing. On a very different level though, I have to also say, one of the nicest surprises of this year was with Sao. Now, Sao obviously mostly became famous because of the whole meme thing, but she was in a Chica idol group before, and I really enjoyed seeing how she turned that into some positive music. The music was very simple, but it was honest. She really didn't try to overshoot her boundaries, but instead thought, I'm going to do something that I can do well. She spoke about her life. She did the really nice song Ohio, which played on the meme, and also played a lot on talking about how she felt about sudden unexpected fame without taking any undue credit, and talking about how she had to respond to both positive positive and negative feedback. And then on the last day of 2025, she released the song Arigato, which took a similar approach. So I really enjoyed that. I must say, hasn't quite become a full-fledged enough musical artist for me to say my biggest surprise, but I definitely enjoyed watching her jump into a little bit of music this year. Another band though I have to mention, which this much more was a musical surprise, was Aisagase. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, but this band, wow. I've only heard 2 songs from them so far, mind, but these 2 songs, wildly different. This is a band who I'm only putting them in here because I am so excited to hear more from them. Unfortunately, because I've only had time to do 2 of their songs, I can't really put them as the best surprise, but I was really excited to hear one song crazy all over the place, manic with changes and rap and everything, and the other a straight pop rock song with a really good chorus. I'm thinking to myself, this could be a big positive surprise. I don't know enough about them this year, but I definitely wanted to mention them. Now, getting on to probably the 3 most serious ones, including the winner, I have to mention Inaichi, or 171. They have been quite creative. A lot of my love for them, I gotta admit, has come through the fact that music videos have been super interesting and really showed their personalities at play and how they seem to be a very interesting band with a lot of cool, clever ideas and working in very creative spaces. I will say their songs have been really enjoyable. I do think they've got a bit of a raw sound that I'm kind of getting used to. I think sometimes it works for me better than other times, but I do think as a general, this is a band that has a lot of promise. And even when their songs don't click, they do always sound like there was a lot of ideas at play. And so for me, this is a band I'm really excited about. The best surprise? Maybe not quite yet, but I tell you what, definitely, as with all these artists, a band who I'm excited to hear more by and really want to hear, what comes next. Now, the next 2, I gotta be honest, I struggled to pick between these 2. But I have to say that the last runner-up before the winner is Seventh Vega. I have really enjoyed Seventh Vega this year. I think they've delivered a couple of songs, especially with Vanilla, which have started to really get me interested. I have to be honest, I don't feel they've quite had enough songs which have really made me go, that's a definite keeper, I'm going to listen to that on repeat play. They haven't quite hit me enough times for me to say best surprise of the year, but just everything I'm seeing and everything I'm feeling is making me so excited about this group. They seem to have a real vibe for doing funky, musically interesting songs. They seem to have a bit of a dry sense of humor that comes across in their music. They seem to be aiming for a bit of variation, and they just seem to have a lot of creativity still in store to show us in the future. I had not really listened to Seventh Vega before the beginning of 2025, but I gotta be honest, at the end of 2025, again, they're one of the bands I'm most excited for, but that has to bring us on to the band who just about pipped it, who I had to pick as my winner for the year, and I went with Brandy Senki. Now look, I know Brandy Senki have been around for a while, as all these artists, they can be around before the year that I first noticed them, but I think I wasn't alone in discovering them in 2025, and boy, what an impression they've made. Now, the first song I heard from them, I pretty much enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty cool. I liked it. Again, a lot of these bands, really cool video concepts going on, but they've built upon that so much in their subsequent songs. Really interesting minimalist ideas. I'm not a big fan of minimalist music a lot of the time, but they've had these really interesting minimalist songs where they've done really brilliant arrangements, build-ups, and just played a lot with the idea of musical tension and emotion. Their songs have wonderful atmosphere delivered through very simple choices. And to me, Brandy Senki is an interesting one. I don't know. I really don't know what to expect from them next, but I must say that I am excited to see what I do get from them next. They are a band who seem to have, as with all of these, again, a lot of ideas. But for me, they were the best surprise of 2025. And that's interesting because looking back at it, I think I could have picked any of these artists and say they were my best surprise of 2025. As mentioned, it wasn't like there was just one big standout. It was trying to compare a lot of very positive surprises. But hey, that's where I'm going to stand on this one. I'm going to give this one to Brandy Senki, but I am excited about all of these and I'm looking forward to seeing what they do in 2026, as well as all the artists who maybe I haven't even heard of yet. and what those artists give me to be surprised about in this coming year. Anyway, there you go. Winner of Best Surprise of 2025, which rhymes, was Brandy Senki.
Alright, for this next one we're going to be going to Flowers Loft, and this is a venue that I've been visiting for years and I really like it, but as I was walking past here on New Year's Day today, I saw this poster that they're trying to sell 1,000 drinks on New Year's Day. Well, I thought I've got to help with that. So I'm coming here to present the award for the best collaboration. See, this is a venue I've come to a lot and seen many things from band shows, Thai bands, and you know, a lot of actually Chica Idol events as well. It's a venue that has all kinds of different artists come to it. And if we're looking for the best collaboration, as we are in this award, what we're really focusing on is bands who work well together. Artists who have things that make them different, and yet at the same time manage to put those differences together to create something unique and interesting. So, I'm here to tell you what I think the best choices are for that, with a little bit of beer, no advert, I'm not sponsored, and see whether you agree with my choices, because it wasn't quite like 2024 where there were hundreds of these, but there were some very interesting ones in 2025. So let's see what you think of my picks.
Well, first of all, the biggest collaboration of names happened very early on in the year when Ado, Suisei, and YOASOBI all had their names and voices featured on a collective song for a McDonald's advert, and you know, it was a full song with a full music video, and it was all three of them. However, this was kind of more of a remix, and as much as I loved the idea of seeing the three of them together, it was a good remix, but a remix nonetheless, and it did also bring back that weird, annoying McDonald's fryer alarm sound that they seem to want to put in all of the songs that are theme tunes for them. Now, yeah, I will say that they did have the Ano song for McDonald's before, which was a really good theme tune, but this one, it was nice to see the three names, but it wasn't a fresh recording, it was a remix, and as much as they approved it, I can't really count it as a collaboration. And for the three names that were involved, I'm sure if they actually got together and did a collaboration, it would be much better. So this was an interesting one, more than a definite win. Next up, it's Baby Metal, and I'm just going to kind of put all of the Baby Metal collaborations in here because you know what? That whole album Metal Forth was actually much better than I expected, and there were some great collaborations on there. I particularly, for example, was impressed by songs like From Me to You, where I'd heard Poppy's music separately just before that came out to get an idea for what it might sound like, and I remember thinking, oh god, I'm not gonna like this. But in actuality, you know, this wasn't bad. It was actually a really good fun song that I enjoyed a lot, and there were some other great collaborations on there. Some of the best ones admittedly had come out prior to 2025, but there was some really great stuff on there. Unfortunately, none of these to me were like definite, oh my god, that has elevated everyone kind of collaborations. They were just really pleasant surprises, and I've got to be honest as well, this is the Japan Music Awards, and considering that Baby Metal weren't really collaborating with other Japanese artists so much in 2025, this kind of fits wide of the mark, but I still have to give it credit for the fact that Baby Metal did actually pull off a lot of collaborations that were better than expected. If it was a different award show, they might be winning this, but I just can't quite give them number one in this spot. What I do want to also point out though is we had songs like the Reka featuring Chico Carlito song, which was brought up as one of the nominees from our audience base, and I'll be honest, this is actually a song that I didn't even know this one happened. As much as I do like Japanese rap, it is true that a lot of songs do occasionally pass me by, and upon listening to this, it was a really good little track. I enjoyed it quite a lot. I can't say I'm overly familiar with the artists and their original work anyway to tell you whether it brought the best out of them, but this was a good little track. I enjoyed this one. Not quite a life-altering sort of wow, that really blew my mind kind of thing, so much as just a good little rap number that is definitely worthy of mention. And talking of surprises worthy of mention, Poppin' Party featuring Hello Kitty Yes, that actually happened. Poppin' Party and Hello Kitty was a song where I had to check quite a lot to see if this one even was a collaboration, because I was like, is it just a commercial tie-in? Has Hello Kitty actually got lyrics in this? And it took a fair bit of digging, but we're 99% sure that yes, that is a voice actress playing Hello Kitty in this song. And so yeah, it comes in as a collaboration. It is a good, fun song. It is a really good, high energy pop song with a catchy chorus, and it certainly does carry a good, sugary kind of personality that is very much in keeping with the idea of Bang Dreams Poppin' Party with Hello Kitty. Yeah, it's not one you'd have on your list of things you'd expect, but that happened. But it's not quite the winner. No, the winner has to go to, well, I think some of you probably seen this coming. The winner is Utaha and Scent for both Bonsai and the song Linda. I would say especially Bonsai in my opinion, but the fact that these two collaboration songs came out together, it reminds me a lot of when we gave this award previously to the whole thing between Ano and Leelys from YOASOBI, when they did those really good collaboration songs together. And that was also a two-part, where at one point Ano was the lead artist, and in the second part Leelys was the lead artist, but technically they were both collaborations, just each song showcasing more to the style of one of the collaborators. And Utaha and Sen basically pulled off the same thing here, with Linda and Bonsai being two sides of the same coin and having dovetailed music videos once again. And to be honest, I just think this was a really good, fun collaboration. It didn't quite hit the same levels of creative ingenuity that the Leelys and Ano collaboration did, but I felt that this really brought their personalities together. It's not maybe the most out there artistic collaboration, but what it maybe lacks in artistic qualities, it makes up for more in just having their personalities match. I mean, Scent is a really fun former Bish member who has been doing these fantastic melodic rock and roll songs ever since she kind of focused more on her solo career, and I think she's actually one of the most underappreciated things to have ever come from that whole Bish or even Whack circus. Scent has really been delivering some fantastically fun songs that have real good staying power. She just hasn't had the same commercial value of, people like your Aina the Ends. Then you've got Utaha, who's obviously become very famous through Wednesday Campanella, but very notably had a solo album that I personally think actually outstripped the same Wednesday Campanella album that came out in the same year. So Utaha has definitely been on top of her game, delivering songs that are mostly into a more pop and EDM direction, but certainly showcase a high level of emotion and a high level of, well, should we say very clever songwriting. She really does focus on giving each song its own personality. So hearing Utaha and Scent together, what you really wanted from this was these two very different but very joyful and melody-focused people to come together and give us songs that had, emotion, joy, and catchiness. And that's what they did with both Linda and Bonsai. But yeah, Bonsai was one of the catchy songs of the year. Definitely a bit of an earworm, and one that stays with you a long time just for the smile that it puts on your face. So no doubt, in my opinion, the collaboration of a year that didn't have so many collaborations admittedly, but still a very, very worthy winner, was Utaha and Scent with Linda and Bonsai.
And now we're walking up from Shibuya Eggman, one of Tokyo's most beloved live music venues, and the board has already been scrubbed. It's that late at night. But yes, just in case you didn't know, Shibuya Eggman's actually in an interesting position, because you've got that junction there, and across from that junction you have back here Yoyogi Stadium, where really big famous acts play, and then on the other side of the street you've got Line Shibuya Cube, which if you're a Band-Maid fan or a fan of quite a few bands, you might know have played in there. Well, look, it's a fairly famous venue. So all three of these venues, the Live House, which is basically for usually smaller bands, Line Shibuya Cube, which is a bit of a hall for big bands who are starting to rise, and then the stadium back there, which is for like huge international acts. Yeah, all basically sitting on one junction. That's an interesting one. But one thing that artists of all size have to concern themselves with is the subject of our next award, musicianship. Yeah, this is always a fun one. Every year this is a one which I'm kind of always worried to give to anyone, because I know musicianship's a contentious topic. I always say myself that The thing I care about more than musicianship is songwriting, and yet musicianship is still something that we need to care about, because although songwriting is that pinnacle art form, the thing that basically gives us the art, gives us the music, we still have to give a lot of love for the fact that there are so many bands and artists out there who put a huge amount of time and effort into delivering that, actually putting their hands on the instruments and making those sounds come true. And so we have to give it the award that it deserves. With all the awards that we have focusing on songwriting, we have to give one for musicianship. And actually, do you know what? This is one that I'm often very excited about, because as with all of these things, as much as I am, as I say, the great champion of songwriting as the underappreciated art form, I, as much as anyone else, can sit back and really enjoy something super artistic. We've talked in the past about bands like Bandmade, who, have obviously, really taken the world by storm with their fantastic playing and the way that they integrate so much into their sound. We've spoken about bands like Koi Eye, who have just kind of blown me away, like, with the Come See Me EP especially. That was just such a wild experience to hear that and just be like really taken in by how great that was. So, question is, with all this being said, before I start saying the name of too many artists, who is this year's award winner for musicianship? The one where just the playing really got me. You know what we do, right? Let's see those nominees.
Miyako from Love Bites is the first name I had to mention this year, as she did some amazing reworkings of old heavy metal songs on the piano. And you know what? Piano is a skill that we often have to overlook in the Best Musicianship Award, because there's just not enough piano playing going on half the time. And it is a skill that I personally really enjoy, seeing someone really master the piano. So Miyako had to be given praise for this. We obviously all know that she is a classically trained piano player, and she's got those classical skills that helped her rework these songs, but nonetheless, I really feel that we had to just shine a highlight on her first and foremost for doing these. Even if they were technically covers, they were great musicianship. Getting onto the bands a little bit more though, when we're talking about other people who are really good at doing old school rock, we have to mention Asterism, and they had their song Blink of Ray in 2025, which was really amazing, just highlighting that once again, they can do their kind of let loose, fun, heavy, charging rock music, but also still infuse it with some really clever musical ideas, whether it be time signatures or whether it be all these sort of clever twiddly things they throw into their music. Asterism are always on the radar when we're talking about Best Musicianship every year, and I think Blink of Ray was a good example of that. We didn't quite hear as much from Asterism as I wanted to in 2025, but what we did hear, I really enjoyed. Next up, I also have to mention Neki. Neki, we often still think of it as kind of being the junior band, a very young and upcoming band, but it cannot be overlooked just how much musical talent this band has. I think Kokoro's drumming skills are often something we don't hear enough about. Natsu is a fantastic lead guitarist who's only been improving more and more, and her work on Meme really highlighted how much she's grown as a guitarist, often taking a little bit more of the forefront this time out. We all know how good Kanade is on bass. She is obviously very much lauded for her skills already, but I just think that you can't say enough about Kanade's bass skills. Absolutely amazing. And Hika up front, delivering what I think, again, very underrated vocalist. Brilliant vocalist and doing great guitar work as well. Neki have brought some fantastic musicianship this year. Definitely worthy of mention. I'm talking about people who are always worthy of mention. We have to also talk about Yuko Suzahana, who had quite an amazing year with the Samurai Diva album. And, again, I think she's another person, just like Miyako, who's great on the keys, as well as being great with the vocals. Yuko Suzahana, I think, never can be overlooked on this, and she did some great work. I think she also worked with a lot of other musicians, though, who were just, she's always around fantastic musicians, and that was, again, highlighted this year. Her project was a little bit of a mix, with various people she's known to work with coming and going, but yeah, there was some great musicianship going on throughout all of Samurai Diva. But talking of other great vocalists, I want to mention Ado. I know when we talk about Best Musicianship, we're not really talking about vocals, but the voice is an instrument in a way, and you know what, if it was that simple, I would probably be tempted to give it to Ado this year, because Ado did an amazing job once again, and she has been getting, in my opinion, better and better each year. This is a singer who, when she first arrived on the scene, everyone thought, wow, she's amazing, but she seems to only get better, which to me is just another sign of brilliant love for the art. When you can already be great, but you don't rest on your laurels, you continue to get better. But I have to say, this year I had to give the award to, well, they've won it before, and I had to give it to them again. Bandmade. Yeah, look, love them or hate them, whatever you think of them. I had mixed feelings about the Scoop EP myself, but one thing you cannot take away from them is when you listen to it, it is just awash with playful, fun musicianship. I've talked about vocals a few times already in this award, and I have to say that I think Psyche has really stepped up even more with her vocals getting better and better, and plus obviously she's also been playing a little bit of the keys. I wanted to hear more of her on the keys in Scoop, but it is great to hear that she has been jumping on the keys, and that we're hopefully going to be seeing more of that in the future. And that's one of the things that continued to make me feel that Bandmade had to win the award this year, because, you know, they are focusing on adding more to their musicianship, you know, getting Psyche on the keys, having the continued improvement of Akane, who's always been amazing but continues to get better and better. Misa showing off how her bass playing is now fitting into this wonderful space where she does the complicated twiddly stuff, she does the simple stuff, and she marries them perfectly together to fit whatever arrangement is coming. And just the work that we get from Konami, well, of course, it's Konami. She's the songwriter, and you know, she never just leans into twiddle. She always tries to make songs that have a good marriage between nuance, complexity, and a focus on delivering the song front and center, foremost, melody, chord structures, these things come through. But you know, she does that by allowing nuanced musicianship, and I have to say that Miku continues to improve as well. More backing vocals, more prominent backing vocals, and continued great guitar work, which is freeing up people like Konami to have a little bit more fun in her guitar lines as well. It just feels like this is a band where, yeah, you know what, you can have your opinions on Scoop, it certainly divides a lot of opinions, but I do think that you cannot deny that the skill and musicianship that went into crafting that mini album, and that they've just generally been showing and continuing to improve in recent years, is undeniable. So yes, the Best Musicianship Award, I had to give it to Bandmade.
Alright, now we're outside of Tokyo Shibuya Milky Way. If you know the joke, you know the joke. Anyway, Shibuya Milky Way is also in the exact same building as Shibuya the Game, which is another live house, the Star Lounge, and Chelsea Hotel down here, which is yet another live house down in the basement. So, you know, this is a place where a lot of upcoming bands play, and it's a really cool little location. You see buildings like this. There's the same thing in Shimokitazawa with Rockaholic and Liveholic. They're in like a building which is stacks of live houses on top of each other. And these little places are fantastic places for upcoming bands to perform. And that means that we are moving on to, do you know what, I think the most important segment of this entire thing. Yeah, we got some big awards at the end. Yes, I'm going to give my favorite releases and all that, and we're going to talk about best videos and all this kind of stuff. But for me, this is probably the single most important, sorry, I just heard someone behind me, wonder what it was. This is the single most important section of this whole thing, because you see, at the beginning of this, you might remember I mentioned how personally, you know, I am having to think every year about how to define the difference between those bands who are small and upcoming and who I don't want to sort of rank against each other and put in competition against each other, and the big name acts who we're really trying to talk about here, you know, the ones who are doing a huge amount to you know, make waves for the Japanese music scene so much that, you know, people overseas are really noticing them, and, you know, those ones who are really sort of carrying the flag, so to speak. Well, this particular section that we're going to jump in now is the one where we do focus on those small bands, the ones who I don't want to pitch against each other, and instead what we do is we just celebrate them. We talk about the best achievements whilst trying not to get run over. Oh yeah, this is another venue here. It's the one which I really like as well, Shibuya Cyclone. down there. But just pointing the camera at too many people. But yeah, this is where we talk about the bands who frankly have just been doing and achieving amazing things, and there's so many upcoming bands that once again I'm sure there's going to be ones I missed. You know, I keep on saying this, you look at all the live houses around here, and Shibuya is not even the most active place for live houses. You know, Shimokitazawa still takes that crown quite easily, and you know, you go to any of these live houses and they are active, you know, every night. Almost all of them are active, and often with multiple band shows, what they call tie bands. We have several artists playing in different genres, you know, all lined up together. And so there's going to be bands who I'm going to miss, but obviously as someone who's working with so many live house bands and someone who works so hard to bring these kind of new artists to you, I'm going to give you my sort of rundown of the stuff that I've been really excited about this year. Apologies if I miss anything. By all means, be excited, get in the comments and talk about the artists who you've been really excited about this year coming up through the live houses and stuff like that that you think is not getting enough attention. Talk about that, because that's something that I really want us to do, as well as just celebrating the big winners of the year who everyone's going to have heard of and everyone's going to see like an international presence from. Let's also celebrate the big winners for the ones who are driving the, you know, the engine room of this music scene, the ones who are pushing the whole Japanese music scene forwards from the live houses up, you know, really kind of generating that new exciting wave of artists who either we're going to see coming in the future breaking into the big names themselves, or who are just simply the ones generating that environment which creates that such a high-pitched voice. Simply generating the environment that is so exciting and so good at cultivating all of the new and exciting music we hear. Anyway, Shibuya's super loud. So let's jump into talking about those exciting live house acts that have made waves, in my opinion, this year.
Well, we have to start by talking about EMINU, or EMNW, a group who I first got into in the dying moments of the summer of 2024, before they had any songs actually officially out. And they released a couple of songs at the end of 2024 to try and find their feet and establish their sound, but 2025 was when they really blew up. Thinking about the songs that came out from them with music videos, check it out, Here We Go, Brain Dead People, Kyaku Zero, More Fire, and all leading up to their cover of Limp Bizkit's Rolling, which is now pushing almost 200,000 views on YouTube. But not just that, they also went out touring all over Japan and touring over Asia, as well as, when coming back to Japan, opening for Bloodywood, the Indian metal band, when they were doing their much beloved tour in Japan as well. So, you know, EMINU have been getting their name out with all the right people, bringing their unique brand of just pure fun rap metal. They're doing music that you can headbang to, but at the same time have a big smile on your face, and that is so valuable, that power of catharsis and joy put together. EMINU have been embodying that, and I can't wait to see what they bring in 2026 with new singles, more things lined up. I'm sure we're just going to see more and more of EMINU, but what a 2025 for them. Absolutely brilliant. I'm so glad to see this group who are breaking out. Obviously they came from a live house scene where I first saw them, but they're still playing in the live house. Believe it or not, 2026 will actually be the first time ever they have a one-man show. For all the shows they've done, they've never had a one-man, and that will be coming in 2026. But I have to say, they're still bringing that live house energy, playing on the big festival stages and in the small live houses. Gotta love EMINU. But talking of bands bringing their sound all around, Akara. This is one that I have to recommend to you guys. I found them earlier in 2025. It is a Japanese instrument style heavy rock metal band with a pure energy focus. You know, when they play, it's something between like a house party or a headbanging metal show with dancing, color, fun, joy, sing-along songs, and it's pretty heavy. I'll be honest, they're one of the intensest bands I know, but still bringing on the traditional Japanese instrument sounds. You know, I loved hearing the koto from Tommy playing in the back of their songs, as well as all of the wind instrument stuff. It's just a really cool band, and they were over in France, touring in France, bringing their music overseas, which was a brilliant thing to see as well, them extending that Japanese music out to France, where they could also, you know, bring more fans the Japanese live house sound. And that is the thing I love about them. They keep that intense, raw live house energy. So Akara, definitely one to watch. Brilliant 2025 for them. But friends of them are actually the groups under the Zillion House of Artists. Now, if you haven't heard of Zillion, Zillion have a few really famous names in the live house scene on their roster. We're talking about Full Moon, we're talking about Sirius, we're talking about Empress. These are groups who occasionally come up with like online reactors who find their music, but definitely these are three groups where if you're interested in the heavy metal scene or just the rock scene in the live houses in Japan, you should check these three out. Now they often tour and play together, which is great because they're very complementary to each other. Full Moon kind of having an old school, very sort of fun and playful style of rock, Sirius being quite intense but still a lot of fun, and Empress bringing what I can only describe as kind of a melodic, kind of driving style of rock, a little bit less heavy and a little bit more on that sort of stage-friendly, arena-esque style rock that I kind of really like from them, all in their leopard outfit patterns. This is a really fun lineup of three bands who are always playing, always releasing songs as well. Lots of cool mini albums coming out from them. Definitely worth keeping an eye on all three of the artists under Zilean. Really good fun. And talking of really good fun, Buzzer 01. I really want people to check out this band. They had a big 2025 unveiling their new 5-piece lineup. Now, I'd heard of Buzzer 01 before, and they were previously, slightly smaller lineup doing fun pop rock music that I would have recommended even back then. But with this new lineup, the 5-piece has allowed them to have this dynamic musical sound that is just really exciting. I mean, you have to hear this. The nearest comparison I can come up with is something on the lines of Gatrix Spin, in that, Buzzer 01, all of the members seem to be singing half the time. They pass the vocals between them. They have a really interesting sound that has a sort of a pop aspect, a rock aspect, and a total freedom of genre. And on top of all of that, the musicianship is really top class. They are fun, they are colourful, they are just super, super exciting, both on stage and in their music. I'm hoping we hear more of the 5-piece lineup's musical output soon, but that seems to be the direction they're going in. Certainly though, I have to say they did a brilliant job in 2025, launching into a new direction that is honestly one of the things I am most excited to follow. I cannot wait to see where Buzzer 01 goes next. But talking about bands who are going places, Iris Mondo are always going places. This is a band who never stops gigging. If they are not in the live house, if they're not like doing a one-man show or playing at a Thai band, you will see them on the streets gigging and busking because they just cannot be stopped from playing music constantly. In fact, they've been over in Asia once again with notable stops-offs in Hong Kong, but this even hasn't stopped them releasing music. We had the mini album I Am, which they've been touring behind. We've had a couple of songs off the back of that as well, and I just gotta say, Iris Mondo brings so much charm into the scene. I've interviewed them previously on the Band Broadcast channel, and there's something about their 2-piece lineup between Satan, who is kind of like the ingenious, cool, calm, calculated, experimental scientist coming up with these crazy guitar lines and sounds, and then Kurumi, who's kind of got this both charming and yet in-your-face kind of punk personality, which leads things up. They are just like the perfect duet. I absolutely love everything they put out, and again, 2025, great year for them, super active. And talking of super active, Ash Frost, who, from Fukuoka and Hiroshima all the way up, she's been touring all around Japan, and she had that fantastic one-man show at Shibuya WWW, which I was very honoured to have attended. I've said this before, Ash Frost is one of the people who just has the best stage shows. Her on-stage presence is amazing. Her songs are pretty much designed, as she said in her interview with me, pretty much designed for the crowd to enjoy. She thinks so much about the crowd when crafting her songs and when crafting her shows, and you can tell what a fantastic personality, what fantastic music she's been touring. And I think if you're going to Japan, you have to check out Ash Frost. She's just such a crowd pleaser. But talking of that, let's talk about one of her friends who actually toured a little bit with her, which is Kakame Meloic. I know more of you might be familiar with Kakame Meloic, the interesting group who seem to want to tie together the aesthetics of rock with the aesthetics of Idol, but definitely are 100% a band through and through with incredible skill. If you've ever seen Yuki Impact, their bassist, you know what I'm talking about. But the three of them just generally have amazing energy and skill, and it's been so cool seeing them doing all this and then capping off the year with the music video for Haken Future, which was just a lot of joy. Again, it's that thing, bringing massive musical skill and then capping it off with a sense of fun and joy. I really like that. So Kakame Meloic always on top, but 2025 was a great year for them. And another great year also has to be said to have been had by Manatee. Manatee, the solo singer, but with a fantastically loyal and very talented backup band who she works with a lot. She's been doing a lot now. At the end of 2024 in December, she had the first mini album drop, which is called Prologue, but the actual music for that came out the music video, came out in 2025, which has since garnered over 65,000 views and has been doing really well with that. She's had her second anniversary live, and Manatee is kind of like Ash Frast, I'd say in a similar category, is one of those people who just has like a onstage personality that you just have to see. I would say Ash Frast and Manatee are those two artists who I would be saying if you just want to see entertaining, engaging rock, these two are definite go-tos. But Manatee has absolutely been clearing and identifying her own sound, really making her musical identity with the music that she put out in 2025, and I feel like she's just more and more cementing what she's going to do moving into the future. So yeah, Manatee, a definite highlight of 2025 on the Livehouse stages. Talking of highlights, I have to keep on coming back to Yes and. I really love this band. Yes and are super joyful, but do you know what? This is another one of those ones, I'm going to say it again. Joy on the surface, talent underneath. But boy, oh boy, their new bassist who they've signed up, that is some serious bass playing. Their guitarist who they work with as well, that is one of the best guitarists I've ever seen. You know, these three are absolutely amazing. Sorry, I should say four now, are an absolutely amazingly talented band who just, when you listen to what they do, there is so much musical complexity in there. And in a way, you would almost be sort of convinced into thinking they were just kind of a silly, light-hearted pop band from looking at their surface. But really, this is actually a band I would recommend to musos. If you're big into your sort of musical complexity and musicianship, check these guys out. But also, if you just want a pop rock fun, Yes And's the one to go for. And they had their single Donika Nachai So, I tried to pronounce that correctly, that came out this year, which was a really great single. But it's just building on a collection of great songs they've had thus far, so definitely check out Yes And. And talking of bands to check out, there's a much more fresh-faced one to check out in the form of Moshimo Fortissimo. This is a band who've been coming up, and I've got to be honest, they really caught my attention. I've had the pleasure of meeting them and interviewing them as well. They had their second EP out in 2025 called Theatre, and it featured a couple of songs, but notably I have to point attention towards the song Blue, which was a really interesting sort of song that starts from a nice pop rock vibe, but then builds into this intense, emotional kind of noise rock thing by the end. They are a really interesting band who I would definitely recommend for anyone making a very good first step onto the scene, and I certainly did enjoy Moshimo Fortissimo with Theatre and with Blue this past year of 2025. Talking of acts you should check out, well, I have to bring attention to alt-idol group Kinopo, who they do not get enough attention. How is this group not more famous? You know, Kinopo have been around for a while. Not only do they have probably some of the hands down best music videos of any group, full stop, but their music as well is super interesting, super catchy, doing a sort of mixture of idol pop fun, but with good rock energy. And this past year of 2025, they had two songs that went into a slightly more serious direction than normal, with Soshite Kyo and then Big Problem towards the end of the year, but both of them maintained that sense that melody is front and center, that big pleasing melodies are what they go for. These were both songs that were really enjoyable to listen to, had a great song arrangement, and really maximized the talent of a group that has quite a lot of very different vocalists, and both had really good music videos. Once again, in line with Kinopo's values, I don't know why this group is not more famous. Go check out Kinopo. If you like things like Bish, or if you like any Japanese pop rock, or if you like anything like that, just something with good melody, a sense of pop fun, and a little bit of subversive madness, Kinopo is definitely what you should go for. And talking of other groups who again I think deserve more appreciation, and Call. Now, yeah, they just celebrated their first anniversary and they had a really great celebration around all of that, but they also released the music video for Supernova. Now, if you haven't seen this, absolutely do. Again, this was one that caught the attention of a lot of online YouTube reactors, and unsurprisingly so, it's a very interesting song, really great melody, and it has that wonderful time signature break in the refrain, which I think also caught the attention of a lot of musos, but again has a great pop rock value that I think is worth listening to. And this is all off the back of their EP as well, and Call is a band who I think are going in very interesting directions, and they're actually great live as well. I saw them them live with John Reeves, who from John Reeves Live, who also really enjoyed them. I've seen them a couple of times with him now, and he really enjoyed this band too. Definitely one that I would recommend to anyone who wants their pop rock with an extra flair of interesting. But I also had to point out some bands who've been coming up this year who I didn't really have much chance to listen to in as much depth as I wanted to, but certainly have me excited for the future. One was Many the Familiar, a kind of gothic-esque rock band who've been doing some really cool things and coming up with some really great sounds. I mentioned about Aisagasu as well, who are a band who I think have been around for a while, but I only noticed them recently, and very interesting variation between the two songs I heard. Really want to hear more from them. We had Real Rail, this tiny band who've been around apparently for years and have only got like numbers in like the hundreds for like their subscribers and their song listeners, and yet are probably amongst the most interesting of the prog-esque time signature defying bands I've ever heard. Genuinely want to hear more of this band. They don't seem to put out music often, but definitely want to check out. And if you're into your music a little bit more, shall we say, experimental, Pew Musica is another one I picked up on this year. Thank you for the recommendation from Loon for that one. And yeah, they seem to be really nice. They replied to some of my comments on the reaction video I did for their song. But yeah, Pew Musica definitely seem to be taking their music in an interesting direction. 100 Yen record, Hyakuen record, this is another one that has to be pointed out because of the fact that their music, well, I thought had a handle when I heard their first song and thought, oh, okay, good melodic pop rock. And then I heard their Christmas December song went in a totally different direction with this kind of ethereal, soundscaped, epic pop chill out, sort of emotionally intense thing. I have to say, this is a group I'm very interested to hear more about in the future. Groups I've heard a little bit more of, Hana Yoi is one that I had a little bit of knowledge of at the beginning of the year, but I've only found out more and more about them. They're very much on the underground with kind of a bit of a shoegaze-esque sound, but whereas you usually think of shoegaze as being a relatively predictable genre, Hana Yoi are bringing something really interesting to it. They have definitely an interesting sound, they have an interesting image, and they really do know how to soundscape their songs, often coming up with melodies that are quite catchy whilst also maintaining that kind of emotional intensity. And I have to say as well, Jam to Highball, this is another group. I've done an interview with them as well because they captured me with their incredibly inventive songwriting. This is a really exciting one for the future. Super exciting, interesting songwriting, and they capped that off as well, just like with 100 Yen record. Jam to Highball had a song in December that really just made me sit up and go, wow, you guys have got these songwriting chops. So Jam to Highball, one to check. And I have to say as well, talking of ones to check, Empty. This band, I saw them live with some friends and we didn't know who they were, and we were just immediately bowled away by just how clever they were. But not only that, this is one of the hardest working bands I've ever seen. In fact, 2025 was the year that the lead singer graduated from school, and just look at how much gigging she did in the year she graduated from school. These are super active, music obsessed people, and I absolutely adore what MT are putting forward. I've done a little interview with them as well, which is coming up on Band Broadcast in 2026, but wow, what an exciting band. I can't wait to see what they put out next. Very creative. But talking of bands fresh out of high school, we have to mention Marine Blue Daisy. Now, Marine Blue Daisy, again, they'd been on my radar for a while, but they came out with a song called 1945 to celebrate the anniversary of the bombings in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which is obviously where Marine Blue Daisy are from, that part of the world, something that was very personal for them. And I know that they pained and agonized over doing this song carefully, and it ended up that the local broadcaster was doing a televised sort of memorial to the anniversary, and this song by Marine Blue Daisy was put up front and center. Now, they were very keen to have English language translations done for the song because they wanted to make sure that the message was properly conveyed to overseas viewers as well, and I had the pleasure of helping them do that, helping them come up with the correct English translations, and we spent a lot of time really agonizing over that, making sure it was perfect. But what a beautiful song from a band who already have been putting out some really cool, sort of fun, catchy songs. This took them in a very emotionally deep direction. And wow, it was amazing to see something channeled like that gave such an interesting perspective on a historic event from the eyes of a younger generation who accept that it's not so much their history, but it's the history of the world that they've grown up in, and how they kind of take that legacy and bring that into the future, how they live with the damage of the past, but also trying to create a better future. I have to say, Marine Blue Daisy, absolutely one of the highlights of the year was how they put out the song 1945, a young band really showing how much maturity can come from the younger songwriting and music parts of our world. But yeah, Marine Blue Daisy, again, they've always been great songwriters, but this took them to an extra level of maturity that was fantastic, and I think it was just good for everyone that they put out such a fantastic song. But talking of things that are kind of sad but in a very different way, I have to give a little shout out to the idol group who I've got obviously a lot of love for. I worked with them back a couple of years ago, DaDaDams. Yeah, DaDaDams they've been through a lot. They've been there and back. They have done a lot of things. But they are they have announced that in 2026 they will finally disband. Now they put out their album finally, and they've had great songs and they've been performing amazingly following the circuit. DaDaDams was always a group that was focused on the Chica Idol scene and performing to the sort of Tokyo Livehouse scene, and I love their loyalty to that. I love the fact they've always had the loyalty to that, and they brought a sort of musical expression and fun. Their songs are amongst the best songs you will ever hear in a Japanese livehouse. Their on-stage performance and personality is just amongst the absolute best. It was always a shame to me that they never quite broke out into something bigger, and yet DaDaDams, they've done such a great job in 2025. You know, they've had lineup changes, they've had all the things that usually happen with Chica Idol groups, but they've also been bringing the most exceptional high quality values of idol groups to the Chica stage. And I would say, if you can see them before they do eventually disband, as it will be in February, it's not long to go, please do try and see DaDaDams before the end, because they absolutely deserve it. And I'm hoping that the members who are continuing in their various roles will go on to lots of good things. I'm going to be keeping an eye on them, and I hope you do as well. But hey, as we're talking about livehouse groups, let's talk about Castella Park. Castella Park, the rap group who to me are just so exceptional, and signed to Lo-Hi-Hoo, which is kind of like a small independent distributor who certainly helped to give artists a little bit of a boost, and who their lead member, well, I call her lead member Asen because Asen's established rapper already, she was already on Lo-Hi-Hoo, so she went back and she brought her group to come along with her. Castella Park have been absolutely brilliant. Now, Asen herself had the single Dancing Fool, which was quite successful for her, and I think it was also a long overdue combination of her incredible skill as a lyrical and rhythmic rapper who really does add personality to her songs, something sorely missing from a lot of mainstream rap these days. You know, she brings personality and message as well as the flow. This was great because Dancing Fool also allowed her to bring her primary, I guess you could say, skill as a professional and acclaimed dancer into the fold, doing both dancing and rapping in the song, which is probably why it took off so well. But then bringing Castella Park along with her, Castella Park impressed me because this is a 4-piece lineup where every single member has really got, very exceptional skill, and they do all contrast against each other brilliantly, making this a genuine example of what a group should be. Interesting and varied, each one bringing their own different voice, their own different flow, their own different style, but complementing each other brilliantly. Now, they didn't put out a huge amount of music in 2025, unfortunately, but they were working on a lot of music that premiered on the stage that I know, recording this just at the beginning of 2026, they have started releasing a lot of that music in 2026. So they are doing a lot of things that you need to be excited about in 2026 if you either like rap music, or maybe if you're just not into rap music but you want to see a group who exemplifies the best of what rap can be and can hopefully be a gateway for people to actually start enjoying rap. Castella Park is a great way into that, as Eminem were, who we mentioned earlier. But yeah, Castella Park, they didn't have a huge amount of actual releases in 2025, but they set themselves up with Lo-Hi-Hoo. They started putting together a lot of new songs, and they certainly set the groundwork for what I think will be a very exciting 2026 and future. I really hope this is one of the breakout groups of the future for us. But this brings us on to the last one. Yeah, you knew I had to come here, because it's the group who I talk about the most. My pet favourite band, the band who I'm always going to come back to. Yeah, it's Caramel Candid. Caramel Candid had, bias aside, one of the most impressive years you could ever have for a band, especially an unsigned band. And keep that in mind. This is an unsigned band, independent, doing everything themselves. They had their first ever tour in March of 2025. It was the usual sort of triangle tour, going from Tokyo to Osaka and Nagoya and back, but still, it was a tour. They got themselves out there going to other cities. So their first ever tour was in 2025. They had their first ever national TV appearance, as well as a few more radio appearances, getting their names out there on the mainstream media, which I have no problem with. I think that is a great thing to see them out there catching the eyeballs of the normal people on those wider sort of capturing forms of media which are very, very effective in places like Japan. So TV and radio appearances is a massive, massive win for Caramel Candid. They had their first ever video to pass 100,000 views. Yes, Caramel Girls by the end of the year did manage to get to 100,000 views, something we were really excited about in the little Caramel Candid support community. And yeah, it's a song that absolutely deserves it, but this is not to take away from the fact that so many of their other songs have been doing really well, with most of their videos pushing above 30,000 views and moving upwards. They are doing incredible numbers on that. And talking of incredible numbers, they've hit over 60,000 Instagram followers. I know they've got a lot of support from their slight Instagram blow up viral video that they put out there, but 60,000 Instagram followers, you compare that to a lot of the other bands who we follow. I mean, I'm thinking about the likes of Nemophila. I think Caramel Candid have more Instagram followers than Nemophila. I mean, Caramel Candid are absolutely blowing up the numbers, and 16,000 monthly Spotify listeners as well is roughly where their numbers have been balancing. That is a fantastic number. That's 16,000 individual people per month roughly listening to their music. That is incredible. And then they've been releasing 2 new music videos in 2025. That was Bath Bomb and Guessed Out Regret, which were absolutely brilliant music videos. Okay, yeah, I'm biased on this one, but I would challenge you to argue it. Great songs with great videos. And of course, that was all to the service of the big thing of 2025, which was them releasing their debut album, Neither Heaven Nor Hell. And what an album, a full-length album, which, I will do a full-length review of this over on this channel sometime soon, but for whatever you like, you should check this out. There is so much variation. It is a fully fledged album of variation, with ballads, with heavy numbers, with happy numbers, with angsty numbers, with virtually everything. Tempo changes, time signature changes, all kinds of different moods, songwriting, arrangements. Every song sits up on its own, and I have to say, Caramel Candid have absolutely blown the doors off of 2025. Super impressive year for a band who, I might be their #1 cheerleader, but damn, when I see stuff like this, it makes me so happy and proud that I am following this band, and I certainly am so glad for those of you who've started following them as well. For me, they really are exemplifying what comes about from a little bit of ambition born from honest songwriting, genuine creativity, fantastic personality, a sense of individuality, and moreover than anything, just a genuine artistic message. Caramel Candid. Love it. Absolutely love it. What a year. Anyway, you knew I was going to talk about Caramel Candid. Let's keep going now. What a brilliant year for the Unsigned and for the Underground and for the Live House bands. I think we can all agree.
This next one is all about making a big impression, which is why I came to here. Yeah, okay. You know where I am, right? Stereotypes be damned. I was in Shibuya, and so it just seemed like a good idea to do one from here. And there's people everywhere, and I look like a tourist, like that. So yes, we are here for the best chorus. I'm going to hold this closer so hopefully you can hear me, because it's getting loud. We're here for the best chorus. Now, what makes a really genuinely great chorus? A chorus is not just about being catchy, although that's useful. You want a chorus that sticks in people's heads, most notably so they can sing along to it next time they hear it, and also because it's that one part of the song that's most likely to make people remember it and go, hey, I want to come back and listen to that again. But of course, there's a fine line between catchy and being annoying as hell. So you don't want it to be an earworm in that bad, grating kind of way that goes around causing you to grit your teeth and wish you'd never heard it in the first place. The kind of thing that you can't get out of your brain but you wish you could. No, that's not what we want. We want something that's catchy but at the same time rewarding. Something where every time it comes back into your head you think, yeah, I want to listen to that again. Or moreover, why haven't I listened to that more recently? That's what we're here to celebrate. Oh, this corner's so much more quiet. Just gonna hang out over here by this white wall.
So, best chorus. Here's my nominees. And first off is Wisteria with the song Yume. Now, Wisteria are still considered a Livehouse band, but they've had a lot of success in the past and really have established themselves with some big hits. I think it's a band who haven't quite seen the same success recently that they have done in the past, but I think they absolutely deserve a lot of attention, and songs like Yume are a great example of how they can deliver super catchy choruses. I mean, this is a brilliant one. It's a fairly simple 4-chord kind of chorus for the best part, but it is one that has been stuck in my head throughout the year. And you know, there's no clever tricks in here, but there is a very effective chorus, and I would definitely say Wisteria, they deserve a bit more attention anyway, so I just had to mention them here. And talking of songs that are got simple but catchy choruses, we have to mention Silent Siren's Koopy Koopy. This one was kind of more of just a mixture of like a couple of cool little hooks going around, but I loved how it kept on moving quickly, so nothing became an irritating earworm, but it kept on going through these cool little catchy motifs. And it's great to see Silent Siren back with some more catchy songs after a little bit of a tentative step into being a independent band despite their past fame. Talking of something very different though, we have to mention Hanabi's Tasty Survivor. This one actually kind of caught me by surprise. It was not one that I initially thought of as having a super catchy chorus until I was going back and doing my notes for these awards, and I just listened to it and thought, do you know what, that is a really strong chorus. Hanabi did not have a huge number of songs in 2025, but Tasty Survivor definitely was one of those ones where when the chorus comes round, you just have to sing along. And Hanabi are not often thought of as a chorus band, but thanks to Matsuri, they do deliver some great hooks, and this is one of them. Talking of great hooks though, another one is Glim Spanky with Camera Irony. This whole song I love. We know Glim Spanky are in it for those kind of old school rock and roll vibes, and this is something they deliver again with Camera Irony, but my oh my, this is just a catchy song throughout. It's not quite got the memorable quality that I was remembering all throughout the year, but it is one that every time I come back to it, I really think I should listen to this song more. Camera Irony by Glim Spanky, definitely one to check out. But talking of the big names, we couldn't do this award this year without talking about Bye Bye Fight by Candy Tune. This, if you were just looking for the iconic chorus of 2025, this one is it. It's more of just kind of a repeated earworm, but it has got a good chorus on it as well. I think Candy Tune actually really delivered on this. I'm kind of happy this one went viral. It's got the cutesy idol vibe to it, but it also is just a really solid song. Cheesy as hell, but so solid, so fun, so catchy. Yeah, Bye Bye Fight by Candy Tune was a real winner this year, however you sum it up. But moving on to some of those choruses that I think were just a little bit more, perfect examples. Kinopo with Big Problem. Well, that's how the name translates, at least. This was, again, Kinopo, one of those groups who I just find they are so underrated. How they are not much more famous, I do not know. They have brilliant videos, brilliant songs, brilliant personality, and Big Problem was a bit of an interesting direction for them. They usually do kind of fun, over-the-top songs, but this took them in a much more emotional direction, and I really do think that what they managed to achieve with this was a super satisfying chorus. One of those ones where every time it comes around, you just want to sing along to it. And talking of songs you want to sing along to, Trident with Dawn's Poem. Again, that's another translated title, just so you know, but this was their first single after joining up to King Records and finally becoming a signed group. Not that you'd know it from their previous viewed numbers, but yeah, they were unsigned until this point, and Dawn's Poem, well, it had a little bit of help from My First Story writing the actual underlying music to this, but I have to say the chorus was absolutely brilliant. I first heard it when they premiered it live at the actual show where they announced they're signing to King Records and all of these things, but just the minute I heard it, what an interesting chorus, so much development, really great one. I think Trident hit a total winner here. I just felt, again, it wasn't one of those ones that got quite as latched in my head. It was one of those choruses that, again, every time I came back to it, I was thinking this is brilliant, but didn't quite stay with me the way that some of the other ones did. Still very satisfying, brilliant chorus. Trident on a winner with this one. Now, the last two were really hard for me to pick between, but I had to give the runner-up to Anno with Rockin' Robo. This chorus, I wanted to give this the win so bad. It is a brilliant chorus, super catchy. This has been in my head all throughout the year, and so much development. The amount of progression that goes through this in the chord pattern, in the way it develops, the way it caps off the song. This is just an absolute joy, and I have to say, the video, everything about this is brilliant. I just love this one, and in any other year I would have given this best chorus hands down, but this year I had to give the best chorus to Neki with OOAK. Now, Neki have had 2 releases this year, 2 album releases effectively, with Trick taking the mini album at early 2025, and of course their first debut full-length album, Meme, happening later in the year. But I have to say, they had first of all Dreams, which was a ridiculously catchy chorus that I would more put in the lines of some of the earlier ones in the nominations, that was catchy but maybe in a slightly overly simple way that could become a little bit of a drilled earworm. But then they followed that up with OOAK, and OOAK is a album like just leading kind of single. It's very simple actually. I must admit, when I did my original reaction to it, I kind of felt that it was just nice. It didn't really sort of blow me away straight away, but it did what any really great chorus should do, which is it grew on me over time. It was a song that I wanted to come back to because I knew I liked it, but the more I heard the chorus, rather than becoming an earworm that became irritating with time, it became more and more rewarding. I started to enjoy the emotional impact, that kind of freeing sense, how it starts with that big yeah, that lovely feeling that you get from that, and the way that it caps off each run through of the chorus with a beautiful little cadence that just wraps it up into a nice neat bow. It's easy to follow, it's easy to sing along, it's rewarding, it's got a big emotional catharsis to it, and it absolutely is the kind of chorus that stays with you, so that when you hear it, you just can't help but sing along to it, and it stays with you for days afterwards. So yeah, for me, the chorus of the year was the anthemic, emotional, catchy, and just beautiful chorus to OOAK by Neki.
I hope that's one we can all agree on, but of course no conversation about Japan would be complete without talking about the big, artistic elephant in the room, anime. And we've got just the right man for it. Yes, it is time for James to give his roundup of the best anime theme tunes of the year. And you know, this is going to be quite an interesting one, because just like with every single year up to this point, James has literally listened to every anime opening theme, specifically the opening themes, just in case anyone was wondering. He's listened to every single anime opening theme tune of the year. He sit down, listen to all of them. I was even there because he did one of his sessions of listening to all of them here in Japan. And so he takes this very seriously, and it takes a really long time. He goes through hundreds of them. And so, well, yes, he has his pick of the best anime theme tunes of the year. So I'm going to pass you over to James, who, and just in case you weren't aware, as well as being my friend, co-founder of this channel, and the man who actually is willing to sit down and listen to all of these, I need to run for this green light. Not only all of those things, but he also owns a comic book, anime, Pokemon card and general otaku wear shop just outside of London in Dartford, which is a place in the southeast of the UK. I'm going to walk this way. So he is definitely the man for the job. So let's pass you over to him now that I've wasted your time running across the junction just to finish off this little introduction. Let's pass you over to him so he can tell you what are the best anime theme tunes of 2025.
Okay, closed, done, finished. That's the year over and done with. So it's the end of the year 2025, which means all of the anime of the year 2025 have come out, which means all the anime theme tunes of the year 2025 have come out, and I have listened to all of them, so I get to cast judgment on which one is the best anime theme tune of the year 2025, and I can tell you definitively that none of them are the best. So there's some good ones this year, and they are good in different ways. So I'm going to give you a small rundown of the best anime theme tunes of this year and why they might be the best anime theme tune of this year. Bailey's whipped cream coffee. Is it catchiness that makes the best anime intro? If it is, then this one intro, which came out in the earliest season of the year in spring, winter to spring, is definitely the one on top, because it just keeps going round and round and round in my head, and it won't leave me alone. But it does have the most memorable and catchy tune, and it goes and it's simple, but it sticks. So if the most memorable, the most catchiest anime theme is the best one of the year, then it's got to be the one for I Want to Escape Princess Lessons. So that is the catchiest anime theme tune of the year. Okay, so the next one I want to tell you about is the most hype anime theme tune of the year, because, well, anime themes should be exciting and get you pumped up and energetic for the anime that you're about to watch. So I think it's only fair that I reward an anime intro for imbuing those standards into their intro. So the anime that really had the biggest intro to me this year in that sense would be, I think it's called Rock is a Woman's Modesty or something, but the intro is animated really well, and no bias, as we say on this channel, or we used to, or we still do, I don't know, but no bias, but the intro for that was Ready to Rock by Bandmade. Yeah. Yeah, so it's one of those ones that it's animated really well for the instruments, and the song is edited down really well to a really good length to be an anime intro, and the full version is also very, very good. So there you have it, most hype anime intro. Is it the best of the year? I don't know. But there's one more to announce, and I think you'll agree it's just as special as this one. Okay, so the third and final, don't worry, I won't ramble on too much, the final category for best anime theme of the year that I've chosen is the most unique anime theme tune of this year. It stood out so much that I had to give it an award of some sort, and it's for a anime about a cappella singing, I think. I don't watch 250 anime a year, I just watch the intros. So the intro to this one was an a cappella song, and the anime is Harmony of Mille-Feuilles. I think Mille-Feuilles is a cake, isn't it, or a pastry? But the entire anime theme was a cappella one, and when you're watching 50 to 70 anime intros in a row per session, once every 3 months, it stands out. So is it the best one of the year? Who's to say? But I say it's one of the 3 best anime themes of the year, and that is the a cappella intro to Harmony of Mille-Feuilles. So there you go. There's my decisions this year. You get 3 for the price of 1 in this award season. 3 award-winning anime intros of the year 2025. Enjoy. Here's to next year. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to watch every anime intro again next year, and then we'll see which one is the best.
You join me upon the Sumidagawa, a rather beautiful river going round through Tokyo. And why are we here? Well, we're here to cross it on a bridge because, segue of segues, it's time for the Best Bridge Award. Yeah, this is one that we care a lot about on this channel, or at least I do. I keep on saying when I do reactions and reviews of songs, a bridge can make or break a song. Plus, you know, they're just kind of pretty at night, aren't they? Like, even the highway's a little bridge. So many bridges. Anyway, so yes, bridge can make or break a song because, you know, it's that part of the song where really you almost don't have to do it. You know, we all know that songs usually have a verse, probably have a chorus. They have their intros, they have their outros, they very often have their solos. But a bridge, that's where you made the effort to write extra chords, notes, and extra development in the song that took the song in a different direction at some point. It's usually after the second chorus, it's usually before the final chorus, but not always. And a bridge, well, It's that point where you can really showcase your skill as a songwriter. Yes, I told you I was going to come around to songwriting in a big way at some point. This is where you can really show off your skill as a songwriter, and you can take something that was just a catchy chorus or something that was just a good flowing song and make it into a song that takes all of those things and launches it into a beautiful crescendo, or gives it that extra sense of development that builds up emotion. It gives an extra layer of depth. It is that bit of songwriting where you can write the little extra that pushes you above the rest. So we're here to celebrate the best bridge, the best example of a bridge that added something to a song that maybe didn't even need to be that way, but by being there made the song so much better. So, as usual, here are my nominees.
2025 was an interesting year for bridges because there was a lot of songs actually that I noticed that were doing interesting things, putting little deviations from the normal song arrangement into very unusual parts of the song. So it wasn't so much that we were getting a lot of the normally positioned bridges right before the crescendo as you would normally traditionally think of them. And one of the great examples of that was Asterism with Blink of Ray, a song that had a really, really interesting attitude towards having time signature shifts in tone, having these overlaid parts where maybe the vocal and the rest of the instruments would be doing different rhythms all the way throughout the song. So I actually thought this just took an interesting approach towards making almost the entire song into a bridge, but yeah, not really particularly a defined bridge I could give an award for, but a song that I definitely wanted to point some attention towards. And another example like that was Baby Metal with White Flame. Now, Baby Metal, they had a lot of collaborations, but this is one of the few songs that was actually just a Baby Metal song, and in fact Sue has a writing credit on this, and White Flame is one of those songs that I recommend you check out whether you be a Baby Metal fan or not, because this is a really interesting, well-written song with a heavy metal leaning, but definitely a lot of clever ideas. When it comes to bridges, this had a guitar solo surprisingly early on in the song, and yes, guitar solos are not usually what I would describe as being peak bridge songwriting, but it was there to break up the song early. And then right before the final chorus, we had this beautiful breakdown to just a sort of calm vocal and koto only part for a few bars, which was really interesting and again showed that great attitude towards a kind of bridge mentality of breaking things up and steering you in a different direction to, if you like, wind up that spring of energy before punching in with the final chorus. Not again exactly what I describe as a peak bridge, but a good bridge writing mentality. And talking of peak bridge writing mentalities, we have to mention Yuko Suzuhana once again. Now, again, there wasn't a specific song where I'd say, yeah, this had a really great written bridge, but every time Yuko Suzuhana or Wagaki Band put out music, you know there's always a breakdown with those beautiful kotos, shamisen, shakuhachi's traditional Japanese instruments. So I just kind of have to point out, you know, pretty much whatever she does, whenever there's a breakdown, it's going to be peak. But no, I can't give an award for that. I have to talk about it. So let's talk all about the three examples that I think really bring us closest, including the winner. Now, Brandy Senki is one of the nominees that I had to talk about because they had this song called Spring, which is harrowing in Japanese. This song for me had a really interesting minimalist design, which I talked about a little bit earlier when I was giving them the Best Surprise Award. And the build-up that this song has is quite nice. It kind of builds up a sort of sense of minimalist tension, and you really feel like you're building up to something big and loud, but then it has this breakdown to the bridge, which is quiet and calm and really surprising. And usually you think of a build-up to something quiet is like a disappointment, but actually this does it in a really eerie, interesting way. The bridge that you get is just this short portion where suddenly the music turns into a very calm, nostalgic, almost sort of Beatles-esque vibe where just everything falls away. And even the music video follows this and knows what an eerie turn the song's taking at this point. I really enjoyed what Brandy Senki did in this. It's not the most sort of inventive bridge because it doesn't really do much to develop from that point. It just beautifully leads you into the final chorus. But I really liked it just as a concept and had to say this was one of the bridges that caught me most by surprise and definitely gave me one of the most interesting and satisfying left turns of any bridge in any song this year. Going in a totally different direction is again Anno with Bloody Rockin' Robo. This is a song I keep on having to come back to because this had I guess you'd call it a bridge. I mean, it pretty much was. We get into the second verse, but then the second verse basically breaks down into this crazy distorted mess that suddenly turns EDM. Everything gets turned up to 11 and the song absolutely goes crazy. What up until this point had been a pop song with a focus on melody and poppy fun just suddenly becomes distorted, loud and insane and very aggressive, but in a way that beautifully launches you into the final chorus. It is a really great example. I mean, because of the fact that the bridge pretty much takes the place of the second verse, I don't know whether to describe this as a bridge or just as a very wildly different second verse. You can see it however you want, but I think that this is a absolutely fantastic example of what a bridge should do. But it's just pipped by this year's winner, and this year's winner for the best bridge, yeah, shoot me if you want to. The winner is Trident with Dawn's Poem. Yes, again, this is just a fantastic example of satisfying songwriting from beginning and end. Yes, I didn't say that the chorus was the most catchy when I gave the chorus award a moment ago, but what it does do is really have this through line of melody. The song develops so well through all of its verses, through its chorus, from beginning to ending. It's just this beautiful journey of sound. And again, I have to give credit for My First Story for being involved in the songwriting in this so heavily. They did a brilliant job in really understanding what makes Trident Trident, because when you listen to this bridge, it starts first of all with this gorgeous breakdown where everything goes much more quiet and we really get to hear Asaka's voice really highlighted, and interesting enough, kotos again. This is a theme that's coming up a lot in the bridges this year. There's this beautiful koto sound in the background, and then it breaks into something which is kind of like a reworking of the pre-chorus we hear earlier in the song, but now a little bit more extended, a little bit more labored, a little bit more sort of just with a feeling of this kind of energy building up. And then at the back of that, the instruments come in with this big roaring, screaming sound as the guitars build up, and the tension keeps rising and rising, and it bursts you into that final chorus beautifully. Now, it is a final chorus that begins with the traditional J-rock trope of having a breakdown at the beginning of the last chorus, but I have to say, it just deals with this so nicely. The way that it builds you up and builds up the tension. When that last chorus comes in, you feel absolutely full of energy and ready to go, which means that when you get that breakdown, everyone is just there on tenterhooks waiting for the song to drop. It's a fantastic use of energy. It's a fantastic way to build up the emotion, and it's just a fantastic way to use a band like Trident, who have great expressive vocals and musicianship on their side. I think this was a really good bridge in a song that just flowed beautifully from beginning to end, and therefore, yes, the best bridge of 2025. I am going to give it to Trident for Dawn's Poem. Hashtag no bias. Get over it.
Alright folks, so it is time for our final award of the day before we pivot into doing the actual ending of this video, which is the top 10. Yeah, just a reminder, ever since you guys kind of suggested, they harassed me into doing it last year, we now do a top 10 at the end of each one of these videos, so I'll be doing that again this year where I'll be giving you my top 10 releases. But the final of our normal awards that we traditionally give out is the best video song combo. And you know what, this has always been the hardest awards to explain, because this, ever since the first edition of the awards, is basically the one that we always kind of gave as the final normal award, just simply because of the fact that it's talking about the best combination of a music video and a song. So basically think about when you're sitting down and then YouTube comes up with a, hey, there's going to be a premiere at this time, so you log into your computer or you log into your phone, you get ready, and then, you know, everyone's in the chat, and then suddenly the premiere comes on and you see that song and video for the first time and you get that first impression. It's really an award for that. Now, okay, yeah, not every single song gets a YouTube premiere, but it's that feeling of the, you know, song and video that you watch, and together they just make this quintessential release. The perfect example of a single. You know, funny thing is that the word single itself kind of has lost meaning these days, as physical releases are kind of less important for defining a song's status. But I often say these days that what I consider to be a single, considering you can download or stream any song individually if you want to anyway, is anything where the record company or the team behind a song decide it's worth putting the money into actually producing a music video for that. So yeah, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for the song that came out that had the best combo of a actual song and a music video that when released together were just great, and also a bit of longevity, not just that first impact. You know, a music video has to be something that takes all of the things great about a song and elevates it, you know, knows what the song is and plays on it, gives it more, you know, gives you a visual representation that moves at the same pace, has the same artistic sort of essence, and just knows how to punch up all of the qualities into a visual manifestation without also detracting or overpowering the song. And of course the song itself has to be something truly great that you can just get into and just be like, yeah, it has to be an awesome song. Now of course, as you guys have taught me into it last year and now every year, after this we'll be doing the normal top 10 releases, which is focusing more on albums and things, so we'll be talking a little bit more about that afterwards. But for now, let's get into our traditional final normal award for the evening, which is the best song video combo, starting with my nominations of course, which are...
And we have to start off with Hanabiya with Spicy Queen. Yes, this is a song that maybe a lot of you wanted it to win, but at least it has to get a nomination, because this song and video, they lean slightly into the heavier side of what Hanabiya, an already heavy band, do. But I think that the video did a great job of capturing the energy of this crowd-pleasing song. You know, basically for a band who have a lot of very crazy and out there videos, this one was effectively just them in a small room, bouncing around, giving that kind of energy that has made them so popular on stage and made them such a beloved live band. But showing it with this palette of very strong sort of blacks, reds and whites, you know, it was punchy palette, punchy visuals, everything kind of bursts off the screen. They're in this small space looking like they're just trying to burst out, which is almost like a metaphor for their career, trying to explode into the world. Sorry if I'm reading too much into that. But one thing that we do all recognize is the coolness at the end of having Yukina literally spitting flames. Yes, this was a very punchy video. Not quite my winner for the year, but definitely one that has me coming back, and I really enjoyed this. I really felt that it worked well with the song. Talking about simple settings and simple songs with a lot of, which is Ano, this time with Past Dive Future. This song to me really had a very heartfelt and honest vibe, and I was quite surprised because the music video goes in a slightly artsy direction, usually the kind of thing that I kind of find nice but doesn't, you know, overwhelm me with interest, just kind of something where you look at it and think that's nice atmospherically, but just something about the way that the music video for Past Dive Future was directed, I really felt that it had so many beautiful subtleties, so many beautiful things about how each shot was arranged. It was like a genuine piece of art to me. Every frame felt quite honestly beautiful, it flowed beautifully, and it captured this kind of sensitive side to Ano's personality that we don't often get to see as much as we should. I think the video was just genuinely gorgeous in how it used so few elements, things like the umbrellas, a little bit of rain, and not much more, to really showcase just a very beautiful raw emotion. Again, kind of like how Spicy Queen had done for the metal side of things, Past Dive Future was just putting Ano front and centre and allowing her to be the emotional core of the video, whilst framing her beautifully with very nicely arranged visuals. I thought this was a beautiful video, to be honest. Going in a different direction again though, I have to give credit to Baby Metal for From Me to You. Look, I know this video, a lot of people pointed this out. This is a video that splits people. It has got a little bit of a cheap CGI vibe going on. It certainly is a video that is a little bit on the sort of rough around the edges vibe, with some weird green screen stuff going on, some weird depth of field issues, but I can't help but feel that we were all kind of waiting for this song to come out. This was like the big single that was going to announce, if you like, the Metal 4th release. Of course, you know, we had singles before, but this was the first single that we really got knowing that it was a release single for Metal 4th, and so there was a lot of excitement building up to it, and I felt that it paid it off. You know, for all of the tackiness of the video, it genuinely does have a really good impact, with cameras zooming around, bright neon effects that break into sort of hellish fire escapes at the end, you know, craziness with all of these sort of digital effects on Poppy, and then the weird 3D monster. It is an absolute manic throw everything at the screen kind of affair, but I gotta be honest, it kind of works. And From Me to You is a song that I didn't really expect to like before it came out, because of the fact that, as I've mentioned, I'd never really found myself to be a Poppy fan, but I ended up enjoying the song, I ended up enjoying the video, and just as a sort of a thing that got released with a real impact, I thought it was a really satisfying first reaction, and much to my surprise, every time I come back to it, I just kind of smile and think, yeah, this is fun. This is fun. So I have to give From Me to You credit. I actually thought that was a really good, fun video, and worked well with the song. And talking of good fun, we have to talk about Yabai T-shirts just sad with Pac-Manism. This video was an absolute charm. Having them running around in the Pac-Man world, having them smiling with as much fun as they always usually have. This was a great combination of the silliness that makes Yabai T-shirt Shisan work, but also the high energy vibes that make them such a fun band. I wouldn't say this is my best song from Yabai T-shirt Shisan. I think they've got better songs than this, but it certainly is a song that doesn't let you down if you just are coming for that Yabai T-shirt Shisan energy. I think it's just good Yabai T-shirt Shisan with a really good video. And more than anything, it's just that fact that when you watch it, you feel happy. Again, a lot like From Me to You, it's not the best song from Yabai T-shirt Shisan, in the same way that From Me to You might not be the best song by Babe Metal, but these are ones where when you watch the song and the video together, you put them together and they put a smile on your face, and that was something that I really enjoyed, so I had to give massive credit there to Yabai T-shirt Shisan for Pac-Manism. Moving on though, the next one is actually a bit of a different take. See, Suicide Caramel Pain was a video that when I initially started watching it, I've got to be honest, on my first watch through, I slightly tuned out a little bit because it looked like it was just going to be one of those videos where you basically watch someone scream, and that was fine. That was fine. I enjoyed that. But then it had that twist, both in the song and in the video halfway through, that made me have to come back and watch it again. See, that twist is so cool. It might be a very simple one that my friend James did point out has a slight failing, but it is a twist that I found very entertaining, as the song just suddenly comes in with this heavier turn, and you can feel like what has up until that point been a sort of brooding emotion turning into a much more cathartic, raging emotion. And then as we get to that, everything on the screen starts to break down, and you see Suisei's character reaching to be 3D printed, and then just suddenly bursts out into the world perfectly on the beat as this 3D animation of herself, and then jumps through the room. It is such a cool twist on a style of music video that we've often seen before, and often those on-screen music videos are a little bit cheap. It's like a cheap way of doing a music video, but this suddenly turns it on its head. And so I decided to go back and watch this, and when I did, I realized that even that first half of the video that I'd kind of not given credit enough in the first viewing actually has a lot of really interesting ideas going on in it as well. Yeah, it's actually very creative throughout, even the way that she pops up in her own Bibbidi video halfway through. There's really nice turns in this music video that I enjoy. The ending is absolutely superb though. I think the only thing I put against it is right in the middle of the crescendo, they decide to show the credits, which I just thought was weird. I think they didn't need to do that. That was probably the only thing that really was a point down for me. But this is one of my favorite songs and favorite videos of the year. But we have to stay with Hololive for the next one. This one, do you know what? It was between this and the winner. So close. All year I was going backwards and forwards between, is it this one or is it the winner? Is it this one or is it the winner? Mikorane's video here is just so brilliant. It's so stupid, and yet every single frame, I've been through this video with a fine-tooth comb over and over, and every single frame has a reference, has a joke. I mean, you're not necessarily going to always get them. Some of them are in-jokes for Hololive and stuff like that, but as you start going through it and as you start learning all the jokes, this is one of the most detailed and carefully put together music videos I've ever seen. The song is an absolute riot, a ton of fun. I couldn't help but just watch this over and over again, partly because I was enjoying the song, partly because I was enjoying the stupid fun of the energy, and partly because I was looking for all those amazing references. In any other year, this would be a clear winner. This is such a good video, coming out right at the beginning of 2025. It was still holding my interest. I was still watching and listening to it regularly come the end of the year. It is an absolute blast, but there was one thing that just about had to pip it. And if you've been paying attention to the awards up until this point, you're going to know what it is. The winner of the best song and video combo of 2025 was Anno with Rolly Rockin' Robo. Yeah, look, I had to come back to this. It was so tight between the two because, as I mentioned, the Microno video had so many cool references and things, but for me, just something about the energy of this video was brilliant. It really tapped into Anno's personality brilliantly. I had mentioned before about how a video should really show the personality of the artist, and this was one area where Anno was always going to win over. As much as I love the references and the fun in Microno's video, there's something about that human emotion that Anno gives in this which is so nice. You get to see the chaos of her personality coming onto the screen, but at the same time this is so visually engaging. Again, tons of fantastic things happening. Now, I also had mentioned Anno and this song both in the award for Best Chorus and Best Bridge, and I couldn't quite give her those ones because I wanted to save it up for this one. But yes, this is still a song with an absolutely epic chorus. This is one of the choruses that has been most stuck in my head throughout the entire year, and every time I listen to it, I love the fact that between the choruses you get those brilliant breakdowns of the bridge. You get so much going on here, and the one thing that I hadn't mentioned earlier is that Anno actually has quite significant songwriting credits in this song. Yes, this is a song that Anno is involved in through and through, and so as a result this feels brilliant for me in that it's kind of got a singer-songwriter energy, yet it's got the crazy fun of a pop sort of video where you can throw all these crazy things at the wall, and yet it ties that all together in a package that really feels like it is quintessentially an Anno product, and it does nothing but make you smile. This is a song that jumps out the screen and makes me smile every single time I see the video, every single time I hear the song. It is definitely a song that I've been listening to on repeat play a lot. I haven't talked to people much about this song because I was kind of hiding the fact that I knew it was going to be a big factor in the awards, but this is definitely one of my songs of 2025, maybe even my song of 2025 when it comes to all the big name releases. This is a one that I have been repeat listening to over and over again. I really enjoy it. I really think the video does a fantastic job of bringing it to life, and I just love seeing that chaos, the mixed style of going between occasional bits of 3D animation, occasional bits of what looks like clay work, bits of CGI, and all at the centre is Anno having a brilliant time delivering a song that she penned herself and in a way that only she could deliver, in a music video that is colourful, bombastic and excellent. Yeah, absolutely, for me, the biggest music video song combo, the one that put the biggest smile on my face, and you can go see my reaction if you don't believe me, was Anno with Rolly Rockin' Robo. What an absolute charmer, and what an absolutely brilliant song.
Yeah, that was a difficult choice, but I'm happy with my final choice, and it brings us on to the final part of tonight's proceedings. So I'm here where I'm packing up all my stuff because soon I'll be leaving this apartment as well for at least the foreseeable near future. But before I leave you tonight, I'm going to be giving you that final top 10 releases countdown that I promised. And yes, this is something that, once again, as I said a moment ago, a little bit earlier, you guys convinced me to do as of last year's awards. And actually, I do look forward to doing this now, which is my top 10 releases. Now, when I say top 10 releases, I try to keep it focused on albums, but it can get a little bit more nebulous. Sometimes there'll be bands who haven't had an album, but it'll just be their kind of general body of work over the year, which is something I've been really impressed with, even if it's just been sort of what they've released in terms of singles or something like that. But basically, I'm looking for the band who I think have had the best output in 2025. And well, I try to give you my reasons. I try to be as thoughtful as possible, but yeah, this one's going to be fairly subjective. As I mentioned about the fact that I hadn't done this before in the first 5 years of the awards, the reasons I didn't do this in the first 5 years of the awards is because I thought it was so subjective that maybe it would be a little bit irrelevant. I mean, when you cover as many genres as we do on this channel, and as Japanese music just does, how do you really pick the best? How do you say, oh, this metal album is better than that pop album, or that pop album's got more variation than this rap album? You know, how can you do that? It's going to be something where you've got to basically have a little bit of subjectivity, but hopefully I can justify why these are my top 10 releases, and hopefully, just like last year, you guys will agree with me all the way up until the end, and then violently disagree with me when I get to my eventual winner. So, shall we see if you guys agree with my picks for this year? And as always, feel free to put your top 10 in the comments below, or just generally comment, like any YouTuber, when I'm asking you to comment, I'm just basically looking for the engagement as much as anything else. But I do read the comments. I am interested in your opinions, and I'm also just interested in seeing how much you totally disagree with me. But this is a fun thing to do, and these awards are extremely fun to do. So this is the last part. This is my countdown of my top 10 releases of 2025. I hope you guys enjoy it. So let's jump straight in with number 10.
So let's start off by explaining how this is going to work. Once again, like last year, I'm going to count from 10 down to 1, and just before I get into the top 3, I'm going to give you a few honourable mentions, albums that I wanted to talk about even though they didn't make it into the top 10 list. And I gotta be honest, when I make this list, just like last year, my biggest fear is that maybe I've missed out some release that I should have thought about. I have spent hours scouring through all of my previous videos to try and remember all the albums and releases that came out this year, so I hope I captured everything correctly here. It's a tough list to make, and this year as well, just to make things more honest, as this is a very subjective list, I decided to just open it up and include everything depending on how big the band is, whether they're super famous or whether they're small in the Lifehouse setting. Can you see where this is going yet? Anyway, moving on, I'm going to move into our top 10 now, and we're going to start, unsurprisingly, with number 10, which is Band-Maid with Scoop. Now, whether you want this to be higher or lower on the list, it certainly belongs on the list, because Band-Maid, well, they delivered a short mini album that really was just their core sound blasting, and it's the same thing as why I gave them the Best Musicianship Award this year. You can't take it away from Band-Maid that just, when they're doing their thing, it's really entertaining. And there's individual songs on this album where if you just pull them out, they're absolutely great. But I can't steer away from that thing that I said in my album review of Scoop, that basically, although there's so many good songs on here and so much of Band-Maid's core quality, one of the other things I love about Band-Maid is their skill for variation, and I just don't feel like this quite gave me the rounded listen that I usually look forward to in Band-Maid releases. So Scoop was really good, it was short, but I can't help but feel that sometimes I would just be happier listening to epic narratives instead. But that can't take away the fact that when I listen to Scoop, when I listen to those individual songs as they each came out, it was brilliant. And so yeah, I really enjoyed Scoop, I really did, and you can't take away the fact that it does belong on this album, belongs on this list, but only at number 10. So let's move on to number 9, and number 9 was Suisei with Shinsei Mokuroku, which is a Nova Catalogue, I believe, when translated. This is an album that does contain some songs that were released the year before in 2024, but still, just as an album, this really stands up. We have things like Caramel Pain that I mentioned earlier, as well as Bibiliba, which is just the breakout single, which obviously had such a massive effect for Suisei. She is a singer who I've kind of said before reminds me a little bit of Ado, in that she's got that sort of big, expressive, soulful voice, but it's just a slightly more accessible version, whereas I think Ado can sometimes be a little bit much for some people, and sometimes you hear her on songs where you think maybe her voice is maybe too much for the song. I think Suisei's got that perfect balance between a more personable, much more sort of accessible style of singing, but also with the ability to reach for those slightly more deep and aggressive and charged notes that you'd usually hear from Ado, which is why I had to say that this album for me was a really good sort of tempo example of what Suisei does. Has some great hits on there, but also moves her forwards. So definitely one for number 9. I haven't given it enough listens through, so I'm wondering how I'm going to feel about that one in a couple of years. It might actually go up this list if I think about it in retrospect. But right now, it certainly feels like a number 9 for me, because we have to move on to number 8. Number 8. Trident with Blue Dawn. Okay, I know this is going to be a contentious one, alright? So at least it's not as contentious as last year when I gave Trident number 1 for Ducks. That certainly upset a few people. But Blue Dawn is one that I can see this one splitting people. Again, it's like a mini album, a lot like what Scoop was for Band-Maid, but this is kind of the opposite. I feel like Blue Dawn actually gives us a very wide selection of songs. We have 2 covers, which does kind of work against it in that, that's not as many Trident songs. There's only 3 songs that are actually Trident songs on here, but those 2 covers do give us an opportunity to see a very bizarre, different side of the band. First, from doing an old school Japanese Japanese rock cover and then doing a punk version of Country Roads by John Denver. You know, this is not going to be for everyone, but I do feel that the one thing you can't accuse Trident of not doing is throwing in a bit of variation. I will say, obviously, Dawn's Poem, I've mentioned it in the awards already, what a fantastic track that was. I really love that as an opener, and I think that's just, on its own, that should be enough to really get this onto the list. But there's also other great songs on here. New Era and Mirror Cried are kind of like not quite as standout notable for being as bizarre, like things like Country Road and such like, but you know, they are great songs as well. And the truth is, if you sit down and listen to this all the way through, it does make a really good listen. It does get a bit weird at the end when you switch into those two covers, but in kind of a way that if you're prepared for it, it puts a smile on your face. These are great songs. You know, it's just kind of not quite enough. I wanted more from Trident, and maybe at worst it could be accused of sounding a little bit messy, but it's good, it's varied, and it does still carry all the things we love about Trident, so I have to at least put this in at number 8. Which brings us on to number 7. Well, it's Nemophila with Apple of My Eye. This one came out quite a bit earlier in the year, and it's fair to say that under normal circumstances, this would not be the sort of album that would usually appeal to me. It's quite scream heavy, you know, it does go into a lot of heavy directions that maybe I wouldn't so much normally lean towards, but I have to admit, it gave us some really great songs. It does have its little moments of calm as well. It's not always beating you around the face. It does have some moments of chilling out, but it has so much variations in the songs that I feel like you just don't get bored with this one. Progress definitely is the standout track for me. I really love that, but I just found this is an album where when you put it on, time just seems to fly by, and the joy that they seem to have transitioning into being a 4-piece, well, it seems to come through. Again, a little bit like Blue Dawn, I can see people saying that this sounds perhaps a tad messy, but a lot like Blue Dawn as well. I don't think you could accuse it of not being full of ideas, not being eager to interest, and not just really throwing a lot of very cool things at you. So I had to put Apple of My Eye on this list. It's one of those ones that I come back to if I want to listen to something pretty heavy, because it gives me something interesting as well. And you know what, it has to go above Trident just because they managed to do the full album, and yeah, full album, you get extra points for that. So Nemophila, Apple of My Eye, yeah, definitely belongs on there. Which brings us on to number 6. Number 6. Yuko Suzuhana with Samurai Diva. Now, this album, actually, I only got my copy of this right before the end of the year, so I didn't have much chance to live with this album, which is probably a common theme on some of these. There's been so much music that I haven't really had a chance to live with some of these albums as much as I wanted to, but I have to say Samurai Diva really did embody everything I love about Yuko Suzuhana, and in fact, Wagaki Band's sound. You know, I came around to this a few times on the awards, if you've seen earlier, just because of the fact there's so much cool stuff going on this. You know, the combinations of all of those traditional instruments with the much more interesting delivery that Yuko Suzuhana gives by bringing that together with the contemporary rock sounds. It's just great, but she's also bringing in some slightly more dancey, poppy vibes on here. There's so many interesting things happening on this album. Is it showcasing the best stuff I've ever heard from Yuko Suzuhana and Wagaki Band? No, they have peaks that are higher than this, but I would just say as an overall album, it was a ton of fun. I really enjoyed this. It's definitely one that gives you lots of opportunity to come back and listen again, and it just gives you so much to get your ears into. So yeah, definitely Yuko Suzuhana, Samurai Diva, that had to be on this list, and it had to go up to number 6, which brings us on to number 5. Number 5 is a bit of an interesting one, because it's an album, and also something that came out alongside the album. Palaneo with Fortissimo. You know what? Palaneo have really caught my interest, and they definitely are up in the big leagues now. You look at their numbers; they're up in the big leagues, but yeah, you know, I still remember them as the band who you see in the Livehouse. Who you see in the Livehouse, who you go check out. I've met their managers. I've spoken to their A&R. They're just lovely people. They're a lovely team of people, and you know, Palaneo have been bringing so much variety to the rock and metal scene, because it has to be said that, you know, you listen to a lot of metal and there's a lot of it where it kind of follows a bit of a formula. But when I did my Q&A video recently where I was talking about what I consider to be the future of metal, I kind of put Hanabiya up front and center. Hanabiya, who haven't really released enough to be on this list this year. Spoiler alert. But Palaneo, to me, Palaneo feel like, okay, they're a little bit more fresh-faced than Hanabiya, but they feel like they're hot on the heels of doing that, bringing inventive ideas. Now, on the album Fortismo, we had things like Crowd Surf Rider, which is an absolutely brilliant song. I really enjoyed just how many crazy ideas that throws at you. We had songs like F Forte, which were a little bit more straight down the line as well, so things to please the metal fan and to be a little bit more, I feel like, straight. But yeah, they just had an album full of really interesting ideas. And the thing that really got them up to this point on the list for me is, because you know how I said that I'm just willing to accept the body of work rather than get too tied down to one specific album? Well, they didn't include the song Raison d'Etre on Fortismo, but they certainly should have done. Luckily though, Raison d'Etre did come out in 2025, and that's really, for me, what pushes it onto this list, because Crowd Surf Rider plus Raison d'Etre, you have had a very good 2025. Yeah, Raison d'Etre was that song which once again, as I think they've done a couple of times in their career, but certainly in 2025, proved that they can just do something that isn't really metal. And this is so important. If you're going to be a band who are kind of a metal band, you need to prove that you're not limited or restricted by that. I always say the heavy bands that I like are usually the ones who can show that they're able to do something different, because it shows that contrast that makes the heavy stuff you do actually have a sense of value rather than you just can't switch it off. And Raison d'Etre was such an interesting and well executed song with a kind of a bit of a out there pop alternative vibe that was just such a nice, interesting turn. Crowd Surf Rider threw everything into one song. F Forte certainly showed they were metal, and they had plenty of other songs in between that took them into interesting directions. So I have to say, Palaneo had a great 2025, which is why they are at number 5. But moving on to number 4. You know how I said I was going to open up the doors and just let kind of everything that I listen to in? This one's not an album. This one is a body of work. This is another Lifehouse group. It's Eminem. Yeah, you know, I said earlier about all the things that Eminem have achieved in 2025. But that body of output, we have to look at it. They got the song Check It Out, came out in 2025. Here We Go Eminem, Brain Dead People, Hyaku Zero, More Fire, and then Rolling. Oh, okay, maybe I can't include Rolling because it's a cover, but just those 5 songs, otherwise, brilliant. Check It Out took us in a kind of a pop-punk direction with a bit of a reggae vibe. Here We Go was almost like the quintessential song for Eminem. I feel like that almost is their anthem at this point. Very much going into a big sort of like, just, I can say high energy place. And then also throwing in all the kind of gentle, relaxing choruses that you wouldn't expect. Brain Dead People, you know, that's adding just one of the catchiest choruses as well. Hyaku Zero taking us much more into a sort of simple direction, but just with a lot of charm. And then More Fire was a song that, to be honest, I think kind of got slept on. It was one that, you know, I actually found that I enjoyed more and more the more I listened to it. Now, you know, it must be said that Eminem don't exactly have what we described as the most complicated formula of any group, but they are at that point in their career, as I said, nice and early on in their career, where all they really have to do is cement what makes them great and look around, explore that bass sound. You know, when you're getting that core sound and putting it together, you look around to see what you can do, what the various walls and sides of that sound are before you build upon it. And I feel like this is a band setting up a great foundation and frankly doing some really interesting things. I really like the fact that all of these songs, they might be metal with rap, but they take it in so many different directions. I mean, I said about Check It Out, kind of having a summery pop-punk vibe. I said about how Here We Go goes in from like heavy to very, very chill easily. They are showing those little bits of artistic creativity that make them stand out above so many of their peers all the way through this body of work, but at the same time still delivering on that hard-hitting, head-banging, party fun rap metal that makes them such a joy as well. Now, before number 3, it's time for those honourable mentions I mentioned. And let's start off, by the way, I really hope that I remember all the albums I want to talk about this year, but let's start by talking about Scandal with Love Spark Joy. Now, obviously Scandal are just legends of the scene, having been around now for nearly 20 years, and Love Spark Joy for me really kind of showed them reconnecting with a little bit of their youthful energy from earlier in their career and sort of bringing them out of the last couple of albums that I've really enjoyed but have been in a slightly more mellow space. It was a lot of fun, but I gotta be honest, I don't think it quite quite stuck the landing. There were some good moments on there, but songs like Terror Boy that were really fun at first, I gotta be honest, I can't come back to that one because the chorus, which was originally fun, kind of grates with me a little bit, but I still love the energy that goes into it. I love kind of the general feeling that they're trying to recapture here. I have to be honest, I know the reason why they put the Roy Orbison cover on there, but yeah, that one didn't really work for me. Maybe that's the way I feel about that, is maybe the way a lot of people feel about Country Roads by Trident. But yeah, in this case, I wasn't a big fan of the Roy Orbison cover. As a general, Love Spark Joy, it was good for what it stood for, but didn't give me the best listen, if I'm honest. Baby Metal's Metal Forth has to be mentioned as well. You know, I've talked about it a little bit in these awards as well. It's a good album. It's got some really good songs on there, and I do enjoy it, but I have to admit, overall, it kind of felt like it had nice ideas, but it didn't really feel like a complete album to me. It felt more like a sort of an experimental thing. There were a few too many forays into what I would describe as the Western metal sound, and I'm not just being a weeb here, but there's just a sound where it just didn't work for me too much on a lot of the tracks, but I would say there were a lot of highlights that definitely make it worth a mention. Just wasn't really like one of the albums that I felt like coming back to and listening to over and over again. I have to mention Unlucky Morpheus with Heaven's Gate. I was not expecting to be talking about this album at all. As much as I like Unlucky Morpheus, it's not sort of a band where I really give them a huge amount of listens, but Heaven's Gate was something I listened to just because we were going to be talking about it on Ears to the East, the podcast I do with Neon Reaper Reacts and with Benedict from Reactomat. And I was really surprised when I put it on for the first listen. It shot by. It's just a very melodic, interesting album with a lot of really cool things going on. Yeah, I actually really enjoyed it. Is it sort of an album where I'm inclined or necessarily tempted to come back to it regularly? Maybe not, but that doesn't change the fact that it was a damn good album. So Unlucky Morpheus with Heaven's Gate, that was, yeah, I enjoyed that. I did enjoy that. Polka Dot Stingray also deserve a little bit of credit for Gekurin, which was kind of them coming back a little bit. You know, they've really been on the comeback run of recent, and, you know, I have to say, this is an album which, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, I just haven't had enough time to really sit down and listen to regularly to get an opinion on. So I can say that what I have heard of it, I did enjoy, but I want to listen to that a little bit more. So hopefully that'll be one that I'll enjoy a bit more in retrospect, as is the case for Seventh Vega as well. Seventh Vega, yeah, they had a really good stretch of songs. I think I'm going to really like that album. Haven't had a much chance to listen to it in as much detail as I wanted to, so that's one that maybe in future I'll look back on that more favourably. Same actually with Brandy Senki's self-entitled album, although that one I have listened to actually a few times, and I've got to be honest, really enjoy it. I think there are some points where it does get a little bit into a kind of a little bit of a rut of being kind of straight grunge. It gets a little bit too simple alt-rock at occasions, but I have to be honest, when Brandy Senki are on a roll, they do some amazing songs, which is one of the reasons why I said they were my best surprise for the year. But yeah, Brandy Senki, I really enjoyed their self-entitled album. I think, again, one that I wonder if more listens will give me a bit more of a different opinion on that. Have to also give credit for the Uncrowned. This was an album that I got very, very late in the year, a lot like the Yuko Suzuhana one. Thus, I haven't really had a chance to listen to it much, but I just want to mention it because I'm so happy that that band is back after all the things they've been through. And I have to also mention Silent Siren with More Than Pink, which was a really cool return to form. They had sort of had their first EP back after reforming independently as a three-piece, but More Than Pink for me felt like they were kind of starting to find their sound. It's really starting to find the joy, really starting to find the life again. And you tie that up with Cupid Cupid, which came out later in the year as well, and there's a feeling that Silent Siren are going in the right direction. I don't think it's entirely formed into a perfect product yet, but More Than Pink and Cupid Cupid were a step in the right direction. But that brings us on to our top three. And at number 3 is going to be a contentious one. Necky with Meme. Yeah, look, okay, I know not everyone was a big fan of this album, but you know what? I think this was an album that was for the Necky fans. I think this album was actually kind of something that I was very happy about, because I was worried that Necky, especially after signing to Pony Canyon, were going to feel the pressure that a lot of bands with Western fans do to kind of lean heavy, and Necky didn't. They stayed true to their sound and expanded upon their sound, and there's some really, really, really great songs on this album. Personally, I love the album opener Frog Flog. I think it's a really interesting way to begin an album. Not necessarily what you'd expect, but it does actually end up being a really energizing song. Jumping is a song that I've ended up enjoying more in retrospect after listening to it several times over. It's and certainly since the video came out, although that did technically come out on New Year, I really find that song becoming more and more enjoyable. Scrapbook caught a lot of people's attention for going into a heavy direction. OOAK, I already gave that award for the chorus. Rip Off is a brilliant song, maybe even my favorite song on the entire album, because just as an overall song that does some amazing things. Gimmick was a single that a lot of people liked, but we also got much more chilled out songs. Marine Snow, Dear Me, this is a good album. This is an album that, you know, whether it works for you or not is more, I think, a case of whether you're a Necky fan. And in future, like I said with Eminem, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there was more interest in seeing them develop and go in different directions. But right now, this is their first full-length album. This is them cementing their sound, and they've done it with an album that is pretty much all killer, no filler. Sorry to use that example, but it is just an album full of brilliant songs, and upon repeat listens, I've only ended up enjoying it more and more. So yeah, Necky's Mean, definitely a worthy number 3. But that brings us on to number 2, and number 2 is Anno with Bone Born Bomb. And you know what? This album virtually couldn't fail. There's so much great songs on there. Yeah, now the Leeless and Anno collaboration is the opening song on this album, and I know that came out before 2025, but we are talking again about the actual release. And as an album opener, that is an amazing song. But then it leads straight into Bubble Me Face, which that came up on most of my 2025 Wrapped as my most listened to song. That thing is addictive in all the best ways, having breakdowns to jazzy bits, all kinds of craziness. We've got Bone Backy Twilight Diary, which is just pure crazy fun with kind of a rock screaming energy, but just in a way that will kind of have you laughing and grinning from ear to ear. Obviously, we've talked about Lolly Rock and Roll already quite a few times in this award, so you know how much that means to me. But then the album slowly changes into this very different album as it moves on, and we start getting things like Just the Two of Us, you know, the last two people on Earth. That song goes in a very beautiful, chilled out direction. We move towards things like You and I Heaven at the end of the album, and Past Thy Future, bringing back a very raw and emotional Eyes song from her previous sort of grungy, punky alternate band Eyes. She's brought that back and done it as a solo song, and boy, oh boy, does it really hit you in a raw way. I mean, a lot of people also responded to the song Happy Lucky Chappy, which is also on the last half of this album. You know, it's an album full of great surprises, and what's really interesting is she's just come off the back of one of the most impressive debut albums ever. And so to hear all of this, I gotta be honest, I think it's absolutely astounding. I think she did a fantastic job, and for me, this is just, such a brilliant album, and especially for this to be your second album, and given how much writing she was involved in doing for this album, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. But of course, that all brings us on to number 1, and if you've been following up to this point, you know what's gonna come next. So number 1, my favourite album of the year. Yeah, you know it. It's Caramel Candid with Not Heaven Nor Hell. And you know, I know there's probably some people who are just like, of course he gave it to them, but this is not a case of me just giving it to my favourite band. There's a reason why I like this band, and what is most important to me is that with all the hype, all the build-up, all the excitement I had about this album, the fact that they actually stuck the landing and it paid off. The songs on here are absolutely brilliant. From the older sort of punky things like Virus Buster to songs like 20 Carnations, which is one of the most beautiful ballads literally I've ever heard. Caramel Girls, which of course took them to over 100,000 views with kind of a crazy intense song that is so formless and so interesting. You've got Tokin in Pitsu, which is basically an acoustic song about childhood and going to school. You've got Gestalt Regret, which is a super catchy track going through all kinds of like crazy madness in the space of, well, I think sub 3 minutes. Then you've got things like, well, the album's title track, Not Heaven Nor Hell, which is such an interesting J-rock song. Headlight Fireworks, which is a very chilled out kind of like little ditty. This album has almost everything. Short story, a mid-tempo, very dirty bass sounding headbanger. It got a Christmas song. One Room Christmas. This album literally has everything. There's a reason why I followed this band. And you know, I don't just stick with bands slavishly. I stick with bands if they keep on paying off what I like from them. If a band isn't doing what I like, then, you know, I'll try and keep my eye on them, but I'll go in a different direction. The thing is that Caramel Candid is a band who I've followed and continue to follow because, in my opinion, they just do everything right. And this album is them doing that masterpiece, that thing that puts them on the map with an album, and an album that is absolutely brilliant. Yes, there are a couple of little foibles that I have with this album, and yes, I am intending to do a full scripted review of the album where maybe I'll point out some of the things that I think could have been tightened up and improved. But when it actually comes to songs, variation, songwriting, message, creativity, intensity, emotion, fun, this album really has everything, and I feel worried that just me being such a supporter of this band maybe cheapens me putting this at number one, but I can't say it enough. If you haven't already heard it, please listen to it. I do genuinely believe this is the best album of 2025. I know, contentious, but I genuinely believe it. So there you go. That's my opinion. Caramel Candid, Not Heaven Nor Hell, is the album I enjoyed this year, in 2025, that year. You know what I'm talking about. It's my list. I'll say what I want. Get over it. Anyway, I really hope you enjoyed it, but yeah, there is. Caramel Candid's Not Heaven Nor Hell is my number one release, number one album, just number one anything of 2025. And there it is. I hope you enjoyed this year's awards. As you can see, time for me to leave. It's been a pleasure doing this channel. It's been a pleasure presenting all of these, hearing all this music, being here in Japan. Obviously now is the time that I have to stand up and walk away from all of this, and I don't know exactly when I'm going to be coming back. We usually end these videos each year with a bit of a joke, some sort of laugh, or just something comical. I can't say I've honestly got one in mind today. But I can say that I genuinely care about each and every one of you, and I will be coming back as soon as I can. And even if I'm not here in Japan, I will be following the music of Japan that I love so much, bringing it to you, and making sure that, well, we'll get through this somehow. As always, if you want to support, you know all the links, the PayPal, the Patreon, all these kind of things. But just from me, here in Japan, my love to you all. My thanks for you watching this. I hope you enjoyed it. And until I see you next time here in Japan, or wherever I may be, for now, ciao, ciao.
東京渋谷ミルキーウェイ